Telephone check-in. What does that mean? Are they watching? Are we?
6:29.
Are they not? We're still a minute early?
Oh, it's 6:29. Phone off, phone off.
We, oh, there, now we're live. Okay, we ready? Everybody ready? Thank you all for coming. We have a 6:30 planning board meeting on August 15th. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I want to get away from Hannah to get up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we have a 6:30 bicycle and pedestrian master plan kickoff with Mapc. They have-
So we have our consultants, Jessica Bollinger and David, okay, I'm going to butcher it, Laustenheiser. And I was reminded this afternoon, one of the reasons I really appreciate working with MAPC, when Jessica was sharing some of the research that others at MAPC are doing about what's different about our commutes today and our driving and walking habits today than it was pre-pandemic. So anyway.
When it's time to advance the slideshow, just say next slide.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can we go to full screen?
I don't think so. No.
No, there's a,
It's a PDF from the website, so.
Okay. Well, I'll start off. The title of our presentation is Littleton Bike and Pedestrian Plan. And the next slide, please. This is the project team. So myself, Jessica Belanger, joined here with my colleague David Lautenheiser. Next slide. We're guided by our Metro Common goals, and these are our goals for getting around the NAPC region. This is our regional plan and is the objectives of the RPA. So MAPC is the regional planning agency out of the Boston regional area, and we support 101 cities and towns in our local community. The plan objectives for today are to create a culture where walking and biking are used more frequently. Second, we'd like to establish a strong focus around, can't really see. I can't see.
You can't see it?
I'm sorry?
You can't see it?
No, but I have it
You
here.
download it, the arrow, download arrow, and open this as a PDF right there, yeah.
It's showing as a PDF, so.
No, but you can open Acrobat and it'll do the full page.
No worries, I have it up here. So I'll start on this slide over. Thanks for your patience. So our plan objectives are to create a culture where residents and visitors choose to walk, bike, and roll to their destinations. Second, we'd like to establish a bicycle and pedestrian network plan, connecting local destinations and surrounding communities. Third, we'd like to reinforce the value of walking and cycling with initiatives and installation of supporting infrastructure. The next is institutionalizing bike and pedestrian improvements in all roadway and related projects throughout the town. Lastly, we'd like to prioritize improvements in areas where vulnerable populations reside. So that includes people of color, low-income individuals, households with no vehicles, seniors, and children. And these groups are disproportionately impacted in terms of having more vulnerabilities to transit-related issues. Next slide. And our process for our scope of work will be to evaluate the existing conditions. We have a community engagement effort that will take place from November of 2020 to January of 2023. Next, we will look at the local network plan throughout your town. We will incorporate the planning for the regional landline in the month of April, and then we'll follow up with a recommended action plan. So from that portion, we'll create a set of recommendations and an action plan that we can actually turn over to the town to implement some of the projects.
Great, thank you, Jessica. First of all, a number of us went out on a bike and van tour of Littleton, and it was super helpful for Jessica and I, particularly, who don't live in the region, to help get a better understanding of the town, thanks to Anthony and to Maren and DPW and others that were involved in that tour this afternoon. It was super helpful. Our plan objectives, is sort of a laundry list of some of the things that we're looking at. Working on the Safe Routes to School program with MassDOT to improve infrastructure there. Quick build options. Quick build options are ways to test ideas and try things out that could be done with simple, recycling or flex posts, or simple low-cost tools that we can help create space for walking and cycling and improve safety in that manner. Working with our community partners, we've already met with the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee, and some of those members came out today on their walking tour, and that was quite helpful to look at some of the situation here. Aligning the walking and biking improvements with the maintenance plan and understanding more about how roadways and sidewalks are maintained and how how conditions are addressed. Addressing barriers to walking and cycling is very important. Many of the barriers that you see around town obviously are missing sidewalks, poor condition of sidewalks, lack of bike lanes, wide crossings, uncomfortable or potentially less safe crossings, crosswalks conditions. Certainly, Littleton's not an island, so working with the adjacent communities to match up with their plans and progress. And then finally developing sort of a regional network of corridors for walking and biking, particularly, similar to the picture on the plan. Next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about, our focus is on walking and cycling. Can you scroll down a little more? Yeah, perfect. Okay, that's it. Obviously a safe walking environment on all streets, and there's a lot of design elements there. Ideally sidewalks on both sides, but one sidewalk is better than none. Basically any street with a stripe down the middle should have some sort of sidewalk or accommodation for pedestrians, and that's not always the case. And as I mentioned, sidewalks on one side of the street, and anywhere there's a state highway, ideally sidewalks on both sides of the street. But again, because we're starting from where we are right now, we have to look at prioritization, and part of our role is developing prioritization to look at, where do we start with what streets have the highest priority for developing a safe walking condition for people, and what projects can be done. Looking at intersections to design with the minimal curb radii, that's actually the turning radius, and the crossing distances. We looked at the Littleton Common just down the street, and we noticed some opportunities there to actually make it safer. Just for example, there's some opportunities to do some work there to improve that, and so we'll be making some recommendations, broader recommendations on that. Such things as median refuge islands. It's actually a vertical or a raised concrete curb in the median of the intersection that allows pedestrians to cross from one half of the intersection to the other. Next slide. I'll talk a little bit about biking. Ideally, we'd like to see bike lanes on all arterial streets where space allows. In some cases, as we see in Littleton, it might just be an opportunity to restripe what's existing there, maybe narrowing the travel lanes by a foot. That would create space for the bike lane. Again, each street's a little different. And of course, priority, we often look at protected bike infrastructure. That's either like a shared path up at the sidewalk level, or bike lanes that are protected by flex posts. Again, where space is available, encouraging or requiring bike parking as part of the development process, just as parking is required, providing bike parking as well, particularly in your residential developments and your more pedestrian-oriented, developments like in the center of town. On the quieter streets, it's looking at creating some of the lower traffic streets, creating a shared roadway space where cyclists and pedestrians are just as welcome and feel just as safe as people driving on the street. That includes traffic calming elements. It could be speed humps. It could be moving that center line and creating a more shared space for everyone. Dash shoulders. Next slide. You can scroll down a little bit on that. So this is just a progression from left to right of some of the treatments that can be done. On the road, you see on the top left would be a simple bike lane. In that particular case, it has a little buffer in between that and the travel lane, and that can be done where space allows. And so the next step up or quality would be some sort of protection, like you see here, with flex posts and a wider buffer. And that could be done to, more physically separate the cyclists from traffic. And then the third option looks at actually putting the cycle track or protected bike lane up at the sidewalk level. So you have the sidewalk on the right and the cycle track left of that. And again, that's sort of the ultimate, when you're redoing or reconstructing the street, doing complete reconstruction of the street, that's an option there. Of course, completely off-road, there are opportunities here. On the lower left is a gravel or dirt path, and which is nice, and we saw a lot of that in Littleton today, and perhaps that could be upgraded to something more accessible, meaning more of an accessibility standpoint. That could be a paved asphalt like you see in the far right, or it could be more of a stone dust surface. The middle photo on the bottom is a sidewalk, and the opportunity there to actually, perhaps a location like that, we could actually widen that to double the width and create more like you see on the right side of the right photo on the right, and create a, not only a sidewalk in a place, but cyclists can be as well as a two-way path option. So these are some of the sort of progression of sort of from left to right that could be elements that could be improved. You could start with the path on the left or the bike lane on the left, or you can move all the way to the right depending on the context of that location. Next slide. So we had a site visit today, as I mentioned, and got a good look at the streets around Littleton, and looked at some of the opportunities and challenges in actually, traversing Littleton. And as me as an outsider, I live in the Boston region, but I've been to Littleton a few times, but this gives me sort of an idea of what the challenges and opportunities are. I think part of what we want to do is create a connected network where we have a network of corridors that we feel safe and the ability to be able to traverse those corridors. And I would note that those corridors may not necessarily be on the same streets that you're driving on. We were biking on, some of us were biking, some of us in the van were on 110, which is not a fun street to be on. It's probably not a fun street to drive on either, but what are the opportunities? But we had a van and so was on bike, and I noticed that we were going in parallel routes, but we would take different routes than the van. Van might take this route, but yet the cyclists would take another route, which would go through some conservation land and through some trails there, and the potential to create a whole off-street network that where we go through conservation land and improve those trails to actually be more bikeable and walkable. So that could bypass routes like Route 10, but also connect the schools. I understand we stopped at the Russell School, we stopped at high school, and so there are opportunities to better connect the schools, I think, with the network. We went through a development on the east side of town, and I'm going to pull up, apologies, that there was a nice sort of new gravel path through there, and that was a good opportunity, a good example near the.
There would have been the Cooper Wellington Trail.
Yeah, a new subdivision and more paths like that as development happens, to be able to provide that complete off-road network that can connect streets, and so that would take pressure off at first, trying to accommodate every street with cycling and walking. The other thing is to be able to, as every project moves forward, any project, whether it's repaving, whether it's a grant for shared streets and spaces, or safe routes to school, or complete streets, and a number of different grants, mass trails grants that can be used for walking and cycling. That any project does accommodate bikes and pedestrians as much as possible. So those using those tools of funding, using developer potential, and so forth. I would think the biggest and when I saw today, the biggest challenge or the biggest sort of, I hate to say danger because that's all relative, but is the point to cross from 495 and getting to that. You know, you go to a 4-lane road, you have an intersection with an interchange, and you have traffic moving in and out off of 495. Very narrow sidewalk on one side of the street, no shoulders. So how do you accommodate from Littleton Common to the point not being on car? And so that's the challenge, I think. And how do we find a solution to that? In an ideal great world, we have lots of money, you build a bridge between whatever development goes in the IBM site, and you build it over to the point. But that's millions of dollars, and that would be nice. But so we'll have to look into more detail of how best we can do that and, you know, accommodate the traffic as well as providing the safety that it's not really there now for cyclists and pedestrians. So next slide. We'll skip that. We can move on. So I'll turn it over to Jessica, who can talk more about her observations on the site visit and wrap up with this slide.
Sure. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that came along on the site visit today, and thank you, Mayor, for hosting us. This is amazing, and as you know, Littleton is really our poster town at Mapc because you are the first town to have a complete streets program. You're one of the first, 2011. So I'm really happy to be here, and this plan will really build upon the work that you've already done. So some considerations we ask you to think about today is sort of the past, present, and future. So as far as the past, have you noticed any conflicts? So this includes trouble crossing, walking, biking, or any places where you know of an accident happening. And then present, we ask you to think about your neighborhood currently. Think about the streets where you work and overall the comfort that you have when you're walking and biking. And what would you do to make it better? What would you change? And then lastly, the future. We ask you to think about your vision for the future of Littleton and what you'd like to see. As population grows and as you have a few new developments coming down the pipe, like what would you like to see the town really become? I think the next slide is for questions. So really, if you have any questions on our scope of work, we are here, we'd love to answer those. But there will be an extensive community outreach portion of our plan. So I know that you have your third Thursday event coming up in a few weeks. We've created a flyer where we're going to be collecting email addresses. We'll also be doing a town survey where we'll reach out to folks to get their input on corridors or areas they'd like to see improved. And today is one of many site visits. We'll have a few others coming down the road. So we're hoping to have others engage and come to the public meetings and share your feedback along the process.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions first? Then I'll open up to the public. Anna, do you have any questions?
Well, I was on the tour today, and I think it really is helpful to kind of review the key problem areas, so we were able to point those out.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I think you mentioned 110. I would not disregard 110 as being impossible, because the fact is on both sides of the street, well, at least on one side of the street, you have room to put in, to widen it and put in shared use, because that is the one road that connects Littleton, Harvard, Air. So it's, you know, it's a pretty important artery. So I just wouldn't disregard it just because, yeah, it's right now I would not ride my bike on it, and I work on 110 and I live down Spectacle Pond. So I should be biking to work, but I could die very easily. But I would encourage you to look at that just because of its connector basis.
Yeah, we found, for example, when we were cycling, we went through the back of the high school onto New Estate Road, then onto the cemetery, and then over to, I'm looking at the map, sorry, Hartwell Avenue. So we were able to sort of parallel it without actually.
Yeah, but at
things
this,
like that is.
Yeah.
I see your, totally see your.
well, but also I'm familiar with all those streets, and they're very narrow streets, so I would not consider them necessarily safe. And I think it's going to be very difficult to put in sidewalks or widen them because of the trees there. So anyways, that's just my input from a community member.
When you talk about your trip from the high school to Hartwell, et cetera, you can go on the Hartwell Conservation Land, and you can come up a Russell Street, you can cross 495, and you can be at the middle school and the Russell Street School. That's what I'd be really interested in identifying these ways of moving around the town that aren't on streets, because they're going to be a lot safer than streets. By the same token, from the middle school, there's a wooden walkway through a conservation area that brings you up to the common. There's a lot of places in town where there's pieces of this together, and maybe your work can sort of pull it together in people's minds, and, yeah, and that probably, I mean, and then there's the issue of, we've been told in the past, when we've asked for crosswalks, that, oh no, we can't do crosswalks because the state highway is in charge of that. I would really like to know if that's true, because we have long stretches of Great Road where there's businesses on both sides that there are no sidewalks. And it's, yeah, crosswalks.
Or sidewalks.
Yeah, or sidewalks, yeah, that's right. So, I mean, that's another issue. Then the third point is, a lot of sidewalks would be impeded by the phone poles and we have a municipal light department that there doesn't seem to be any coordination between any of this, and when they're always replacing poles or making them taller. And I'd like to see some way of coordinating, you know, if we identify where we want sidewalks, when they're replacing poles, maybe they could, you know, make room for sidewalks.
Well, minimum, you need to meet the ADA, so
Pardon?
you need to meet the ADA.
Well, they don't. I mean, they just don't. I mean, in the common, they're sometimes, you know, they're like this deep from, I mean, you know, some of these are old right-of-ways and there may not be room. I'm just saying, if we can get that on the table as a potential, that would, you know, make a difference.
Anyone else on the board before I open up to the public? Go ahead. Anybody who's heard it have any questions or comments? Yes, sir, we're in the back.
Jerry Cavallo on Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. I just wanted to point out that we did take the path today through the Hartwell property over to the middle school. That was one of the points.
Great.
And after we left the bike shop, we went to the car wash, and I pointed out that to the left, there's no sidewalk going all the way down towards the field. So we did specifically look for those spots.
Great.
That you had mentioned.
Anyone else? Yes. Name from Myron, please. Yeah, sure.
Gary McCrory, I'm with the TAC, but I also am a proponent for the Neshoba Regional Greenways, which goes to, going to put a little pitch in for that. That is a consortium, coalition of over a dozen communities between 128 and out as far as Ayer, that are trying to connect our towns with better, safer routes for both bicycles and pedestrians. So having a way to get, not just thinking like an island of Littleton's by themselves and connect everything, but connect with everybody else. And so I'm an advocate that the master plan look at that as well, not just looking at what we're doing in Littleton, and see how it connects with the other ones. And I think, Dave, you're working with some other master plans in that region, right? And so I think we also get some ideas from the other ones who are also doing this, and see if we can spread some of those words around. Because I think the goal here is that we are not an island, that we're trying to improve. There's so many benefits of having better bicycle pedestrians, not just for you walking from your house, Jeff, to Donovan's or to the library, but also connecting and having I want to have a good ride, and I want to get to Blue Stream Rail Trail. What's the best way for me to get there? And to connect to all these, we have Bruce and Freeman, we have Ascot, we have the Ayer Rail Trail on National River, and Mass Central and the Minuteman, they're all relatively speaking within 20 miles of here. And it'd be wonderful to be able to connect these things better. And so I think hopefully we look at both getting the kids safer to school, connecting to the things in town, but also looking regionally. So hopefully we do all that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think that's where looking at 110 and also 119 would connect to the other towns, so.
And the other comments that I've received are the train station, connecting to the train station. And that from other communities would also be important.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Oh.
I would just make one comment. The busiest street we saw in terms of people walking and cycling was Hartwell.
Really?
Really? Huh.
We saw 4 or 5 pedestrians.
And that's like the most dangerous street to do anything
No,
on.
sorry, it's.
Yeah, that's correct.
Harwood. Yeah, Harwood, sorry, Harwood. Apologies, Harwood. And also, for cyclist perspective, particularly people that bike, there's no interchange crossing 495 there. So it's much more advantageous than the other roads.
Right. Yes. Great. It's a great start, and
So what we've done is, with the help of IT, set up a bicycle and pedestrian master plan page that's linked both to the planning board page and to the BPAC, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, to their page as well. And we'll, this kickoff presentation is posted to the website for anybody that couldn't read that on the screen today.
How are we going to communicate this to the community once there's a survey, or we're going to look at ways of getting the word out?
MAPC is very good at that.
Okay.
At working
Okay.
with the towns on the best way to get things out.
Okay.
So we'll be able to post things here, and we'll be able to use the facility of the website to help get information out. And BPAC is ready to help us get the word out as well.
and you'll be at third Thursday to collect as much information there as you can as well. Great. Anyone else? Nothing else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure working
you.
with you. Oh, we're actually ahead of schedule right now. Wow. That ain't gonna last. We can start board business, right? We don't have to set time for that. Let's start with, anybody, board member up, input? Anybody have anything? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Violet.
Okay, I went with, I met Mr. Durkin, who presented last time about the Jamie Cruz farm. I went with John Mitchell in his truck, and we drove around the field in question, and we had about an hour conversation about the location of his proposed activities and the purposes of it and the duration of it and the limitations that they would accept on them. And it was a very constructive conversation. I think that part of it was reflected in John Mitchell's letter to the board about the stone crushing being done in the winter. He seemed to be willing to accept a time of day limitation. I think he agreed to move all of the operations down towards the middle, along that, what I think of as the west side, towards the middle of that. There's a little angle in the property there. And because of the geology of that corner, that area, it makes a lot of sense for him to do those activities there. So I think I was very pleased with that discussion. So the other thing that I have to say is that I've been reading this book, Rural by Design. It's very dense. I haven't finished it. It's got a lot of good ideas. It reiterates the difficulty of doing TDRs in small towns, but there are a lot of other suggestions of how to preserve open space and create non-sprawl environments. So I would actually, if we're going to do this, I would like some help kind of interpreting and summarizing what this book says. It's got a lot of chapters and it's a lot of good stuff in it, but it's very big.
Bartlett, did you look at the minutes of the 14th, which sort of outlined the proposals for
Yes.
Jamie's? Did that represent what?
Yes.
I found that really useful because at the meeting I was unclear about what was actually, so that is a representation of like the limitations
Yes.
on the time and the day, and the
Yeah.
hours and, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he agreed that noise attenuation was a big deal. He's going to put a berm up. one suggestion was that they do that stuff only when people are most likely to have their windows closed, just because of noise. We can't do much about the prevailing wind, but he asserted that the compost would not cause odors. So, I mean, I think that my impression was that he's very willing to work with this board and accept limitations on what he can do, and that it is a temporary, I mean, he said again that it was 1 month a year for 2 years that the stone crushing would operate, and he has no intention of continuing stone crushing after that.
Okay.
And I said, well, that I would propose on this board that we give him a 1-year special
Trial.
permit and renew it after a year so that the issues can be reevaluated.
And the stone crushing was the ledge?
No, it's all loose boulders.
Okay.
And
But
some of
then
them are.
weren't they gonna use the boulders to sell also, or?
No, he said that the rock crushing, some of it would involve
Hammer.
basically a jackhammer on the front of a backhoe, the ones that are too big to move, but that all of the stone would be crushed and used, the gravel would all be used on site to make a road to go back from the highway back to where they're going to be working and where the compost will be.
Okay.
Did he go into any details about how much bigger the composting operation would be as opposed? He told us that he had an existing composting business going on now.
Yeah.
How much bigger it was going to be, and
No, we did not discuss size.
because I think that's probably one of the biggest fears of
Well,
the neighbors.
that's a
yeah.
question that we can raise.
Yep, okay, thank you. Anyone else have any updates? You,
So I just want to say at our last CPC meeting, we just discussed the fact that we will need to be able to talk with different boards about blended funds, and so that might be something, if we ever come across that we can do with CPC.
thank you. Delisa, anything?
No.
Jeff? I don't have anything. Minutes for the prior meetings?
So I had emailed you the minutes of the executive session from June 14th. I had forgotten to send those out before the last meeting, so if you have reviewed those.
Anybody had a chance to look at them?
Yeah, I think I did.
I don't think I saw them. I saw the July 14th. Anyway.
So I'm happy to send them again. We can do that
Okay.
next time.
Bills? Do we have any?
And then the July 14th regular minutes were posted.
Yeah.
See a lot of these.
Anybody? Didn't get a chance to look at them?
Yes.
I did.
I don't have any comments.
I don't have comments either.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the July 14th minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to that.
Second?
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got that one out of the way. Bills.
Bills, 2 sets of bills coming around. One looks very impressive because it's authorization to expend the grant funds, the Housing Choice Grant funds for the water and sewer connections for Hager Homestead. Those funds have come to the town, and now the town would, through these bills, pay the water connection fee the water and sewer connection, and temporary sewer connection fees. There will be additional fees to Hager Homestead, but this covers the total amount of them.
Can I ask about the DocuSign stuff that we're doing now?
Am I all
Oh,
done with
yeah,
that?
yeah, thank you for bringing it.
I mean, because I feel like I don't look at the emails and I miss them, and then they notify
I think we're
me.
all,
And same with me, yeah.
are we all done with DocuSign? I don't have to do it anymore. Yeah. Okay, grab the pen.
Sent any DocuSign.
Jeff.
Well, there
I
was
think
one
last
in
week,
July.
last week there were some, and yeah.
It was from Lucia.
From
It was
Lucia.
Lucia.
Yes, I think she did send around a couple bills.
Yeah, but I'm 99% sure I'm done with DocuSign. I don't have to do it anymore. right?
Okay.
That's what I hear.
Yes?
Okay.
Then we don't need to talk about it.
Okay,
Oh, you have a pen.
yeah, because I think I was holding it up
Yeah,
too.
why were you saying them?
I don't know, I
I
just
don't
showed
know.
up in the email.
Yeah, for payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually I get them.
No, we
Right,
were
that
getting
we-
them too.
Right, the payroll, that's right, the last payroll went out to all of the board members. We thought we were gonna be able to do it through department, and that wasn't set up last week yet, so hopefully,
All set.
Okay.
hopefully, a week and a half from now, we'll be all good.
Okay, so I won't be saying it, no one will be saying it, it'll be handled internally. Okay, perfect. Anything else?
So that was it for bills, yep.
That was it for bills? Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the memo that we're gonna send to the ZBA in regards to Cooper Farms.
So I had updated, sent you a draft memo to suggestions of a comment letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the Cooper Farm Estates, just to bring everybody up to speed. The developer had applied for another building permit at Dean Lane. The building department has that permit on hold. The developer has appealed that hold to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's the planning board's opportunity to provide input to the ZBA's public hearing process on that. So what I did was laid out just the units that are required. I'm not saying this very well, but the affordability requirements, 25% affordable, 15 units on site, add in the farmhouse because that is counted. To me, if it's counted on the numerator, it should count on the denominator as well. There's a separate problem with the farmhouse, it is not deed restricted to be affordable. But then after that, the next unit would be number 17, and that's clearly above, doesn't meet the 25% affordability requirement. So that letter hopefully goes through the thought process on that and shares what I've heard from you on your stance on that. So
That's one aspect of it. There's a few other components, but the gist of it is that it's supposed to have 25% affordability. It's not age restricted, it's not deed restricted, and it was never offered to the public as an age and deed restricted unit. So it shouldn't count as an affordable unit. If you go the next step further and do count it as an affordable unit, it's still not
deed restricted.
deed restricted or age restricted too. It has to be age restricted too. So that still doesn't count. So if you count it in the total, so I'm summarizing what you're having to say. If you put it into the total, we're at 16 units. If you put that next unit in, that one has to be affordable as well because we're over the 25% affordability. So no matter how you slice it, that unit has to be, and that's what Myron was trying to point out. No matter how you look at the disposition of that property, the next unit has to be deed restricted, age restricted, and affordable. Okay. So that's part of what we're sending it. I think we should all make an attempt to go, because we've had a public hearing on this, we've discussed it, we voted it, we sent Mr. Mullen our letter telling us that we want to make sure that the next unit is an affordable unit. And I suggest everybody on the board that can make it should go to the ZBA meeting. And
When is that again, Maren? or Mark?
Thursday.
Thursday this week.
We did meet in executive session with the selectmen about this issue, and without going into too many details, it was agreed that it's really a planning board issue. It's not a select board's issue, and that we should be addressing it with the ZBA. Okay. Anything else? Do you want to add to the letter? You want to make our presentation when we actually get in front of the ZBA? This is the letter that we all had at the executive session as well.
It's an update to it, yeah.
And a little bit of an update to it as well, to make it a little more, to clarify it. Do we want to add more to it? Do we want to leave this and then, like I said, go to the ZBA and speak as the board publicly when the issue arises?
Well, since it's such a long and winding road, You in particular should be there.
Well, I'm planning on being
Okay.
there, yeah.
Because if there are any, but in general, I would say that this memo, it's like the Dragnet guy, just the facts man. I mean, this is just the numbers, and that's, there's a lot, I know there's a lot of nuance. I know, there's a lot of nuance, but the numbers are the numbers.
Okay.
So it looks like, I'm looking at the agenda on Thursday, it looks like it's on the agenda for 7:25 PM in room 103.
Do we need to post that we will be there as a planning board then?
I'm happy to post
I
that.
think we should, yes.
Yeah, I will not be able to attend, I think.
Everybody else going to be able to? Lisa, are you going to be able to?
Yep.
Yeah, so let's post it.
Yeah. So I just had a question on item number 8 of the memo. Item number 8 under number 17, in the last column. I guess I'm just a little confused about the words. It says would not meet affordability requirements, so I just was not clear about that. I don't know if you want to explain it now, but since that's what I see is what we're talking about, as we want it to be affordable, so.
Okay, yeah. The thought process, my thought process was if that building permit issues as a market rate unit, then the development would no longer meet the affordability requirements. I'm sure there's a much better, more succinct way of saying this, so I'm happy to update the memo.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's clear for the recipients on the ZBA that they know what that means. And
So
so in terms of language, exactly what you said, if this were to be considered market rate unit, it would not meet the affordability requirement.
Of the special permit, yeah, the
Yeah.
25%.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Can I make one tiny editorial English teacher comment?
Yeah.
In the second sentence of the second paragraph, where you go, after you go through the 15 two-bedroom over 55, the next sentence included, I would say, in the last number are 3 deed restricted, rather than in all of the numbers.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thank you.
Anything else? Jeff, are you okay with this?
Yep.
Elisa?
Yep.
This is, like I said, this is part of our presentation we made to the town council and select board in executive session, was this. Great, so we'll send that off.
Yep, I'll be able to send that off in the morning.
Okay, town meeting minutes. This is what you're trying to push along for town meeting?
Well, town meeting is coming up this fall. Town meeting warrant opens August 22nd, closes September 22nd, ish. 3 issues I've heard about. One was the conversation we had about inclusionary zoning bylaw and A&Rs. If we borrow wording from Beverly's zoning bylaw, they cover it very well. And the question is to the board whether or not you want to move forward with that for this fall. It's really a fairly simple, it's a short zoning bylaw amendment. And Beverly already does it very well, so we already have good wording that we could
So
talk
can we
about.
get a copy of it so we can look at it?
Yeah.
We're gonna probably be talking about whether or not, now that we're getting closer and we're narrowing everything down, which we're gonna be speaking about shortly, the train station. Do we have a slot for that, or is it too soon for that?
I would suggest it's too soon for that. We have, I hate to do the conversation before the presentation,
Yeah,
but
I know.
we have, Littleton was awarded a $50,000 EEA planning assistance grant to refresh the planning that we've done around the commuter rail station.
When do we?
December 2024, we have to have that zoning in place.
When do we have to let you know about the warrant article? Like yesterday, right? Yeah.
The 22nd.
Oh, so we have a little bit of time. Okay. Great. Anything else about board business, or can we move right on to?
Well, actually, I had some questions.
Okay.
So on the proposed fall planning board articles, so inclusionary, Marvin, I just wanted to confirm, so this particular item is for 173-205 A and B, so we would be removing that language and inserting this into 205 A and B? Is that what the thinking is? I just got confused about the number 300-1.
Right, the number 300 is from the Beverly zoning bylaw.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
We would extend, right, we would extend the work that we were doing with Chris Heap on this, and I would give him the wording, if this is the wording you want to use,
Okay.
I would give him that wording, and he would do the numbering and turn it into a warrant article.
Okay, great. And so, thank you. And so this is a result of the application that was on Hartwell Avenue? I mean, it's sort of to help mitigate those kind of things from happening again?
Correct.
Okay, great.
And then the second item is, the board has discussed a budget request for assistant town planner. Question to the board is whether you want to request that for the fall town meeting or wait to the regular budget cycle next May. If it were approved at fall town meeting, then we could start the hiring process shortly after that. If it's approved, if it's on the regular budget cycle, it would be hopefully approved in the May town meeting, and hiring process could start for July of next year.
Do we have to wait, so it gives us all the way till July, we can't do anything if we wait till the spring town meeting.
I mean,
I
we
don't-
need somebody now,
Yeah, I don't
the
have any
better.
problem, yeah.
you know? I mean, everything we've got going on or coming up, there's no way, Mara, you can do
Yeah,
this all by
okay.
yourself.
And if for some reason it weren't to pass in the fall, then we'd have spring again.
So why don't we get it on, but
Yeah.
especially where we know 500
Yeah, 550 King.
is
Yeah.
gonna be coming down this.
Well, in
fall
the
anyway.
northern bank, they're, you
Yeah,
know,
they're getting
moving
ready to- yeah, why
slowly,
don't
but
we-
moving.
We gotta put something in, you know, we gotta look like we're doing something. All right, why don't we do that then?
Okay, thank you, and I very much appreciate that policy response. And then the third thing that might be on fall town meeting is Douglas Road at Durkee and K. There's one last segment of Douglas Road that has not been accepted. The developer is working on getting the punch list items finished up, so that'll probably be coming, in my words, hopefully coming forward. I hope they're ready to move
Okay,
on
great.
that one.
Anything else? No. That's it? Look at that, we're almost on time. All right, we have 715 Foster Street zoning bylaw proposal, rail transit overlay district.
Is there a board up here?
Yeah, or we could do,
I have one in my bag. I have a cord here. Is there a connection over there?
So I know we're gonna get a Reader's Digest version of this, because we're only given you 15 minutes.
Such a
but
nice night.
While you're talking about it, we should probably, as a board, discuss. Maren alluded to the fact that we have money, we have a consultant, we have a bylaw that we're almost ready to go to town meeting with a couple of years ago. And now we have direction from the state. We have everything we could possibly need, right?
there's the policy direction.
So, obviously, we'll take what you've got, take what the state has, and take what the work we've already done, and kind of meld them all together and hire our own consultant to come up with something that we can propose for town meeting. Now, you heard us just talking, there's absolutely no way that we're gonna be ready for fall town meeting, but we'd like to have it available for spring town meeting if at all possible.
We were hoping to be a little more ambitious than that, and work through some issues, but I understand that some of the.
Well, I think it's too much to digest in September and October for a November town meeting, you know? And then, like I said, having Jess got it, what's been holding this up has been the state.
I understand that also.
So, and we know that the state is looking at the town, and we know that we're in a good position with the state, and I think we'd like to keep it that way, so. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay,
Give us
for the
your-
record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. I have with me this evening Christine Hug, my associate, Nate Long, the property owner, and Todd Fremont Smith, who is from the Nord Bloom Company, a consultant. We've been working with the property owner for a better part of 6 or 7 months, trying to come up with something that addresses some of the objectives that the state has been articulating, some that the town, and by the way, let me just set the record straight. Everyone I speak to talks about how proactive Littleton has been. And you're ahead of the curve in many respects on the housing initiatives, and just sitting through some of the planning discussion there on the pedestrian bicycle master plan components and some of the comments. You do a phenomenal job of staying ahead of the curve on many of the issues that are confronting the state. I was on a panel for the New England Real Estate Journal, I guess 2 weeks ago, that was highly attended by the state, and everyone recognizes what Littleton has done, and attempting to do, and hopefully will continue to do. So my professional applause to everyone in the town for being so proactive. So I'll let Todd address the, we'll kind of tag team you a little bit here, but what we're proposing this evening is an overlay that would, and I'll discuss it later on, but provides both flexibility as well as predictability in terms of achieving some of the goals that the state has set forth in the recent guidelines that were published, but also the statutes that were enacted last year. So without further ado, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Again, Todd Fremont Smith with Nord Blom Company. We'll be brief. We know you have a busy agenda. We did want to talk just about Chapter 40A, which is the new state law which deals with affordable housing in the state, which is a crisis, as we all know, and how that might relate to the Long's land at Foster Street, which immediately abuts, it's 34 acres, which immediately abuts an 800-foot long train platform that the MBTA built 5 or 6 years ago. The Long family is facing a business decision because the land is zoned industrial, and the industrial market, as I'll show you in a minute, is very busy. And so we're trying to advise them on what to do, and they're trying to do what the town wants, which is hopefully some sort of transit housing down at the train station, but they are facing some cyclical pressure in the market that everyone, I'm sure you can understand. So Mass General Law, Chapter 48, it did really 2 things. One was remove the supermajority, a 2/3 vote for housing-related issues, which I'm sure the board's aware. It also provided guidelines for affordability, which dictated that each community served by MBTA that shall designate at least one zoning district where multifamily housing is available by right. And there are specifications around that, minimum gross densities and distance from commuter rail stations or bus stations. But it specifically is attempting to encourage multifamily development in and around transit. The legislation was passed by the legislature back in January. The public comment, so it is a law. It's a real thing. It's not going away. We had a seminar recently with Secretary Keneally at EUHED, and he reiterated that this administration is really committed to having this happen. The public comment period actually ended last week, as I'm sure Mara knows. The guidelines were issued, and so they dictate that each municipality, by January of 2023, have an action plan, which is then adopted by December of 2023. And I've given these slides to Mara, and if anyone wants to look at this summary later on. As Bob said, Littleton is positioned way out in front. The state recognizes that Littleton is a very thoughtful and creative community and is not opting out. What they're saying behind the scenes is that, and actually openly, is that those communities which work with the state to try to create these districts of multifamily are going to be put in front of the line for all kinds of mass works funding or any kind of funding for projects like bike lanes or anything that that the community would like to do, and then communities that actively opt out are going to be put at the bottom of that list. And they're saying that openly. We just grabbed this one Foster Street tip project. This is an example of what, if you were at the top of the list, you would be getting additional funding. This is very similar to when the Community Preservation Act came forward. The communities which participated early got much more funding than the communities which participated later. Whether it's sidewalks in town or bike lanes. I just grabbed the consultant out in the parking lot that you've been speaking with Mapc, because we're trying to do the same kind of thing in Burlington, where we have some holdings. The industrial market, as I said, and this is what the longs are, they get their phone is ringing. There's an undersupply of industrial product in the market. This is anything from an Amazon, sort of smaller Amazon warehouse, to companies. There are a lot of companies that do things and make things and have trucks coming and going, and the land is currently zoned industrial. And if I can read that, I think that our latest brokerage summary shows something like 40 million square feet of demand in the Boston market and about 7 million square feet of supply. And again, Maren has these slides. So the land in question, 34 acres at the intersection of 495 and Route 2. I know the board knows this, that the town has worked on this site extensively. The MBTA has built a brand new raised platform. There's some limited parking there, but this is as good a transit-oriented development site as we've ever seen. Again, the train is there, the land is there, and it's just a question as to whether or not the town would like to designate this area as a zone which could possibly comply with the new state regulations. So we're here just to propose an overlay district for the 34 acres to work with the board and various boards in town, with the Long family, to try to come up with a master plan. And as Bob said, zoning is just the beginning. Zoning just allows us to have this conversation. Obviously, when we get to the point where we're planning an actual site, that would be a much more elaborate process. But the question for this board and other boards, and ultimately, hopefully, town meeting is this a good idea? Is it a good idea to, given the state regulation, is this a good site to designate in part or in whole as to the affordable housing zone the state is mandating? So we would propose to create an overlay zoning district, perhaps 2 or 3 different zones, some zones being lower density, perhaps on Foster Street, a zone might be higher density up against the railroad tracks. It'd be on private sewer. It could be designed with this board to a very high sustainability standard, and all those things could be written into the zoning. And of course, multifamily housing has a much lower traffic impact than industrial uses. We did a very simple early, this is the land up on the screen. So area B might be the lower density. Foster Street is at the bottom of the plan, might be a lower density zone with townhouses or some kind of retail. And as you cross a bridge across the wetlands and go back towards 495, you might have an area which is more suitable for, higher density mixed use housing. Sorry, multifamily housing. As Bob said, this is a panel that we did last week, actually in Burlington, where Secretary Keneally came out. We had an economist from UMass Amherst, and we were just talking about the suburban housing crisis. That who lives in these apartment buildings when they do get built? It's teachers, it's older people, it's municipal employees. It's just not normal that a starter home should cost $700,000. It's just not normal. We need more housing in this region if we're going to keep up with all the job creation in the region. This was a slide, again, Maren has this. It just shows, this is from UMass, that although the state is meeting its goals, it's not meeting the projected household creation. And there's this ongoing deficit year after year as more and more people move to the United States, and more people move to the Boston area for jobs, all the great life science and high-tech jobs as they get out of college and migrate here. So again, we know that the town has studied this area for housing in the past, transit-oriented housing, and we were just pulling a few of the web pages off about the Village Vision Plan, Littleton Station Village. This has all been studied. I know it's not news to this board. You guys have been at this for a while. And even in the master plan, it calls for greater density in this area. Kim Driscoll was a panelist at that Middlesex 3 event last week, and specifically mentioned Littleton as a community that's out in front. There are others, Bedford is out in front, Salem wants to be part of this. There are a lot of communities that are running away from the state regulation, but there are a lot of communities that are actually trying to be at the forefront and partner with the state to try to create housing and get the associated benefits thereof. So as we started to discuss at the beginning, next steps would be to work with the planning board to try to get, and other boards, to try to build some consensus. We've got fall town meeting, we just heard from the chairman, that's not likely. We understand the political realities here, so, but it's a political campaign that we have to go run and convince, and win hearts and minds that this is a good way to respond to the state regulation. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just make one comment about the overall zoning? As I said, it's intended to have flexibility and predictability. The flexibility is to clearly satisfy the housing choice aspects of the legislation. The flexibility is to be creative and try to do a mixed-use type of development where it belongs. And the flexibility also is, as time changes, the needs and the uses and the criteria change. So you need that flexibility to be able to react to it. And the reason we're doing it this way is, and I've done it for the Nordblum company, but we recently, I say recently, it's been a 10-year project. I don't know if you're familiar with where the old HP site was in Marlboro on 495, but I was involved with drafting this for something similar to this for the city when HP left the city with all that vacant space. And we did something very similar to this and created 500 residential units, a hotel, 700,000 square feet of office, and revitalized that whole area. And it was a collaborative effort that the city, but here the town would know exactly what's going on. There'll be an execution template as to how it goes forward. And there's two important points. Todd made it that all you have to do is look at the CPA. Those communities that were out front early on were the ones who got almost 100% reimbursement or matching funds. Those who came in later in the game were at the 20 to 30%, if that.
Littleton was there.
Oh, no, I know that.
We missed out.
Oh,
yeah. No, we missed out.
You missed out. Okay.
Yeah.
Got in
Big
late.
time.
But so that's a major issue to be out front, because a lot of communities right now haven't figured out what to do and how to do it, and as Todd indicated, a number of them are opting out, and the ramifications for that are going to be, I think, catastrophic. It's a great location, so we will work as hard as we can to get it in place, and it's important to realize the expression I use, this is the key to the door. It doesn't create the project, it creates the key to let you in to have that discussion, to create the project. And so the sooner we start that process, the better off everyone will be, so.
Well, like I said earlier, the good part is that we've spent with the Longs over 3 years.
Right.
Getting to where we were and then
Yeah.
getting it ready for town meeting. Now we have, the state has finally weighed in, and now we can, and we have a consultant, so.
Right.
And we are very clear on what our challenges are, so we need to just figure out how we're going to address them.
And one option may be, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, is it's that important of an issue both for the Commonwealth, but as well as the funding applicability for the town, is maybe consider having a special town meeting to consider this along those lines. So I throw that out.
No, and I appreciate the fact that there are definitely economic constraints. There has been since this whole thing was proposed, because it is zoned industrial, and we have Amazon and everyone else coming before us to put commercial, to revitalize the commercial space that's there. So we do appreciate the sensitivity and the fact that the Longs have been more than patient, I think.
I think you should look at what 550 King did to get the town's approval. They did do sort of generic planning. They presented images. It was sort of a shockingly large project for Littleton, and it went through fairly easily. You will not have the same thing because the neighborhood is dedicated to whatever you want, against whatever you want to do. I appreciate that you're mentioning your other options under zoning. I think that's something that we all should take into consideration, because that was the same at 550 King. So that's all. I mean, there's another project along, smaller but probably more high profile, a commercial area, and they did the same thing. They presented imagistic, I mean, generic, not, and like you said, this is a roadmap. It's not the key is interesting, the zoning unlocks, is the key that unlocks it, but then there's a planning that is generic but could change and in detail, and, but just consider it. And I know it's a financial consideration.
No, it's well, we're a new company, and I've worked with Todd on this, the Third Avenue in Burlington.
Well, when he sort of said, "Oh, we have holdings in Burlington," I'm going, "Yeah, you sure do." Yeah.
Mark, do you think we should just talk about reinstituting the Littleton Station Committee, or what are going to be our next steps here?
I think we're
Because
past-
so much of this has been done.
I
All
know.
this work has been done.
I think we have the $50,000. I think we need to spend it. I think we need to take everything that the Littleton Station did, everything they've done, and everything the state, put them all together, and then start meeting publicly here to discuss it. Where's our step with a consultant? What have we done about that?
And who's our consultant?
Well, that's,
Well, yeah, it'll take some time to put the contracting together to get the consultant on board. If,
Who
depending
is
on
the
how.
consultant? Are we sending out an RFP, or?
We haven't even talked about that process yet.
Okay.
well, we should get going on that.
Yes, yes. But I would recommend that it to stay with the planning board rather than with
Yeah.
yet another subcommittee that
That's
is
fine.
not
I
staffed.
think,
Yeah, no, good.
And I came in the end of the previous, and there was a lot of hand waving, and it wasn't ever really clear. We had numbers, but, it wasn't clear what was going where, and what was never clear is what the MBTA was going to do with parking. I mean, that was never addressed, and that seems to be a big thing. And it does actually affect Littleton residents, because we use the parking lot. So, anyway.
The biggest issue was Foster Street. That was the biggest.
I think,
yeah.
and Delisa can address it more because she was in charge of it. We had a pretty good plan all done.
Yeah.
We were ready to go. I think if we take that, there's not an awful lot of work to do to finish where we started. We need to put it over the goal.
We need to talk more about Foster Street.
Right.
I think I speak for the development team. We've been through the mill a number of times. We've done a lot of major projects, a lot of major commercial. I assume this is the Amazon group?
No.
It's another one. It's
I've
another
done
one.
a lot of
Yeah.
major Amazon robotics out in Westboro, a lot of that stuff. But we know how to do it. We know that Todd brings a lot of talent to the floor to work through these issues. We're committed to work. The only thing I will advise the board, if I could be so presumptuous, is time is not everyone's friend. I mean, there'll be limited funds. Those communities that do opt out will quickly, because there is a way to get back in for the next year. You want to capitalize on all the good work you've done. And we're willing to work as hard as it takes to get this to a decision point. And again, the actual project, the design, the technical issues, that's the second phase. No one is going to spend the money to develop that for consideration. You can do theoretical concepts, but unless you have the key that opens the door, it says, here's the zoning, now come back with a project. No one's going to put, because you don't have a project.
Right, but we have to have a concept and a footprint.
Absolutely.
Because there was so much opposition to it.
And
We
that's
can't
why,
just say we're
and
gonna.
that's why we came up with the idea with an overlay with zones where density and type of product would be developed.
You're basically picking up where we left off
We
at the end.
we
yeah.
studied what you had done. A lot of work went into that. We acknowledge that, so.
So, yeah, we just need to keep going with it now.
Well, I think that's the key is, let's not put it in neutral. Let's move forward.
And I do appreciate the time is of the essence for two reasons. A, to get money for the state, and B, the Longs deserve an answer. They've been 3.5, 4 years of back and forth with developers knocking on their door for putting another Amazon or putting warehouse out there that you can put little pods in or something, and all kinds of stuff has been going on, so.
So we'll be a little pushy as we go forward over the next
All right.
few weeks. So,
And we will get going on the consultant, we will
thank you for
do
your
our
time
work.
and
Thank you.
consideration. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you for your comments.
As do we.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments.
And I would say, from my point of view, to have a company like yours, I don't know you, or I might say the same
He's
thing,
okay.
but I know your company. I mean, you've done a lot of impressive things, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask who wrote this.
And thank you for putting a good word for us about, with the state, with the town. It was nice.
You went to me, I would.
No, but I heard,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you should be recognized. You were ahead of the curve, way ahead of the curve.
Well, you should look at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're trying to just get her an assistant so she can do even more work.
You want this back, Norm, or should we?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
So I think the way that it's been discussed is good to be able to work with a consultant and take into account everything that we had from a year ago, but also keeping in mind that we have the new development at King Street Common to take into account. We have the post-pandemic world that we're living with. So I think there's a lot of factors that we should be looking at to be able to revisit our goals for the Littleton Station area. And by being able to get the consultant on board, I think that's great. I would ask that as part of that process, we have an opportunity either through retreats with the planning board and with the select board, because I think we have found in working together collaboratively with our colleagues on the select board, we can get things done a lot faster and more effectively. So that would be what I would suggest, is that when the consultant comes to bear, whoever that is, that we make sure to plot in some time there for just making sure that we're all on the same page, and for making sure that we are physically discussing this and making sure we're going down the right path.
Okay. Well, we just go back to what we did at 550 King Street. We all worked together. We did an amazing job getting it rezoned, getting sewer, and all that other stuff. And I totally agree with Anna that we have to all be working together to get this, to have a chance of getting this to pass. I think.
Can I just talk about the numbers for a minute? From what you said, that the state will require this zoning overlay to satisfy 20% of our 750 units. That's
No,
the minimum.
20% has to be
Land
within
area,
a certain.
the land area.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay, now I'm
so,
confused. Yeah.
And so if Littleton so chooses, you could count more of the King Street Common district than under the draft guidelines. So there you have 750 units, or close to 780 units on 40 acres, so you're pushing 20 units per acre. You may not have to have more than 10 acres, 10 developable acres near the commuter rail station for a transit-oriented district. But then we have to have time to have the conversation, is that a large enough district to make something work there? And what density would you like to see there? With 20 units per acre at King Street Common, theoretically you could go with a smaller, lower density at the train station, but would that meet the town's goals?
So this is why we need consulting.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we need feasibility. This is going to involve private sewer. So we're going to have a number. We're going to have somebody tell us what's the bottom line, is the smallest amount of apartments or housing and stuff that will support a sewer that is feasible.
Right, because the state has already said through their guidelines that they're not going to support communities that push the number of units so low that
It's not
you can't develop them.
You can't develop,
Yeah,
so we have to
it's-
make sure.
But also, we want to make sure that we get the housing stock that we need. What we don't need are more single-family homes
Yes.
on 1 acre lots.
I like single family.
Hey, I do too, but,
Downsizing.
yeah, I want to downsize, so I'll give my single-family home to somebody else and we'll move into a condo.
Right.
Yes, we have to look at, obviously, we have to look
When
at.
we actually see this project as being complementary to the other project, there will be different characteristics to both. The state's going to look at the tangency to the train station is a big plus.
Yes.
And for not just housing, but transportation goals and sustainability and fossil fuels, all the things add up there. But they're compatible and they're complementary, so, and it's a minimum number, so that, and it does not necessarily mean they all are built in one fell swoop. That's one of the reasons why you have the overlay and you have the roadmap as to how you get there. So, with that, we'll let you get on. I know you have to pull it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 7:30. We're running a little bit late, but talk fast. Continue public hearing, major commercial, industrial use, special permit, Aquifer Water Resource District, Monarch Drive, 1 Monarch, new warehouse industrial. Go ahead.
Good evening. Kyle Rayner from BMD, Chairman, and board, thank you for having us. So the last few times we were here, we spoke a lot about a potential tenant, and we are now happy to say that tenant has signed a lease, and that tenant will be Pods. So it is a warehousing use, but a very low impact warehousing use. So it is our understanding that there will be 20 employees or less. A lot of those will be drivers coming in the morning and coming back at night. So at the facility itself, we expect there to be fewer than 10, more likely to be 5. So it's a very low impact use from a traffic standpoint, from a septic system standpoint. So that is I think the big development since last time we were here. We did review the draft decision. I don't think we have any questions or comments on that. So we'll just revert back to any questions for the board.
What have been, Anna?
I do. Good evening. So I had a question regarding how the decision should reflect what work is going to be done to mitigate the situation for the turtles. So specifically, I'm referencing in our bylaw 173-884D, which speaks to the analysis of the consequences of the proposed development on unusual species, mature trees, wildlife habitats. So I think based off of what we've heard snippets here and there, and we've had the letter from David Paulson, but it doesn't feel like there's a cohesive strategy for what's going to be done, at least not in written word. And I think that the analysis of what's there, what's going to be done to mitigate it, needs to be stronger in order for that to be in the decision.
So I will attempt to summarize what the plan is for the turtles. And if I misspeak or leave anything out, Sue can jump in. We did have Brian Butler at Oxbow here, I think, spend a bit of time explaining the plan. But
And then you'll put it in writing, right?
well, we will with the Conservation Commission, with MISA, in order to get the CMP with Natural Heritage and MISA, we have to put it in writing. This is our plan that they're agreeing to. So we're in negotiation with them to revitalize the CMP that was never in.
I don't think I'm communicating what I'm asking for. What I'm asking for is that whatever that plan is, that it be reflected in the decision, because the decision is what is a record. So that's what I'm really asking for. But if you'd like to explain it one more time, you can.
Why don't we just get it so that however you have to satisfy.
So what I'm struggling
He's fine to
to
explain it,
respond.
that's fine.
I know, I'm just saying he doesn't really need to explain it. As long as he explains it to the powers that be that are gonna issue the permit and we put it into our decision, I think we're all good.
Would you want, just a condition saying that these agreed upon
Mitigation factors.
mitigation strategies are incorporated into there's some wordage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
that's what I'm asking for.
I was going to suggest that.
And-
We could do a brief paragraph saying that we are subject to the MISA and we will be getting a conservation management permit for the turtle habitat. With that, I can tell you right now, because I've been working on the plans, we're going to be setting aside about 4.3 acres of land for nesting habitat enhancement. We're also going to be doing a crossing under Monarch Drive so that the turtles can cross from one side of the habitat to the other without getting run over by vehicles. And we could give you a one-paragraph summary of what we're going to be doing and the permits needed and the other agencies that will be reviewing it, including Natural Heritage and the Conservation Commission, if that
Yeah,
works.
I think that looks great.
That's fine, thank
Yeah,
you.
that
Yeah,
looks great. I just didn't see anything in that decision, so that's why I'm raising
I
it.
just
So,
wanted
Anna,
to make it-
the last
we're
time
still
we did this
negotiating with
was,
CMP, or still
we had
fine-tuning
spotted
it.
salamanders, and the way we handled that was whatever was, because we are not experts in
Right.
that, and whatever.
Right, that's why I'm
National
saying it doesn't-
Heritage, what they said, we put into the decision, and what they agreed to was in
Yep,
our
we're
decision.
saying
So
the
we can
same
do
thing.
that.
Yeah, we're happy to comply with, any type of conditional.
Yeah, what Jeff
language
said.
Just condition, condition,
All right,
condition.
Yes.
is that it?
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Anyone else, or everybody else good?
I looked at the peer review, it looked like things were being buttoned up, and
I'm good. Are you Bartlett?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I have two other comments, questions. So, what does the fire department say about the 250-gallon double-walled tank? Has there been any comment from the fire department? Do they need to look at that?
So the fire department reviews all the building permit applications at that stage, so they wouldn't have looked at this information yet. But it's similar to other other installations elsewhere in town. And the 250 gallons is below the threshold for a planning board special permit.
Okay.
So it will get looked at the building permit stage.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, so this is asking for 202 parking spaces, and so I'm just wondering, given the fact that there won't need to be nearly that many used, to reduce the impervious footage, would you consider reducing the parking?
So the way that we presented this was the most intensive use, because we didn't want to come in here and tell you that it was X use, since it was speculative at the time. The way that we approached this was that it could be modified, or we could sort of market the property as multiple uses, flex, warehouse, and we will need that pavement because pods will be storing empty containers out there from time to time.
Oh, okay.
Do you need all of it? Because what we've done in the past is we've made it expansion areas and stuff. If you do need it, you can build it, but if you don't need it, you don't need to build it.
We contemplated whether or not the front area, the actual parking spaces, could be future parking, and I don't know that we have not fully addressed that with pods. So I think we're amenable to that, but I can't commit to that one way or the other today. I mean, we would certainly, we would appreciate building fewer parking spaces out front if the pods did not actually.
Okay.
it's always tough, because, like, how many years lease do you have for pods?
It's.
Well, you don't have to tell us, but the lease
It's
will.
more than 5.
The lease will end, and then there'll be other uses,
Right,
which
so then
may
you'll need it, but
that
that's why we do it
parking,
as
so,
expansion.
And if we want to call it expansion, but be able to build it from day one, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, we're fine, we're good with that.
Okay.
If you do find that you don't need as much pavement, we'll still approve it with pavement, but we'll approve
Yeah,
it
if
subject
you
to.
don't-
If you don't need it, you don't need to
You
build
don't
it.
lose the right
We
to-
do that, we do it all the time.
Yeah, that would actually be terrific, because if they do not require all that
Yeah,
parking. we
why
would not
build it?
Right.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Has the number of trucks, daily trips, and the number of loading docks changed anything from your former presentation?
So the loading docks will not be actually built. They will be built as a knockout, so they could be added
Okay.
later on as sort of second or third generation users. In terms of the truck traffic, we do anticipate substantially fewer trucks coming in. We don't have an actual count.
Yeah.
In discussing it with pods, they didn't have a firm count. They don't have any historical traffic data that we could utilize, but they did say compared to not an Amazon, which is a traditional warehouse, it would be significantly less. So.
Okay.
The units themselves, or the containers themselves, just aren't moving as frequently as maybe, like a retail good or something like that was coming in to restock stores or something like that, so.
There's just a couple of items on the peer review that stand out. Mara, maybe you can help with this. Number 18 says, under the applicant's response, recent soil testing and borings, previous testing on the site, and Soil Conservation Service soil maps indicate soils within the work area are consistently of fine to coarse sand. Landings turtles are present on site. We request this Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook recommendation be waived or made a condition of approval so testing can be scheduled to avoid the landing turtles active period. So what's your?
Yep, there's, one of the conditions of approval is to do the testing in the stormwater areas at a later date.
Okay, all right.
Specified.
Sometimes I can't tell if it's in there or not, so,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So we talked about parking. And then, let's see. Okay, I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I always appreciate the questions because I
Okay.
did have time to go back and check all of the conditions, and I'm always glad when I didn't miss anything.
So are we
Thanks.
good? Can we close the hearing and take a vote? That's probably what you guys would like, right?
I don't know if there's any more public input at this point.
I think we've closed the hearing now. We're just ready to take a vote.
You
No,
kept
I
the
don't
hearing
think-
open.
Oh, we haven't ever closed the hearing?
We haven't.
Okay.
Anyone in the audience have any questions or concerns?
I move we close the hearing.
I second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We want to entertain a motion to approve.
So I move that we approve this matter, whatever it's
We
called.
Major commercial industrial special permit, Aquifer Water Resource District special permit, site plan review for 1 Monarch Drive.
And I want to reference the draft decision with the additional conditioning regarding the speed-
Mitigation
The
for-
mitigation for the turtle species present on site.
Is it possible to reference the CMP permit in that condition so that way we're compliant with the mitigation within the conservation management permit?
Okay, well,
Yeah, that's in my notes. so.
okay, good.
And Maren will
The
clean it up.
paragraph tomorrow, we'll write it up and make sure we have everything correctly identified.
Okay.
And then the phasing of the parking space.
So how do we want to word that?
That if,
Because right now the decision says up to 202
Two
parking
And
spaces.
we could say that they, they may build fewer parking spaces without prejudice for future installation.
as needed with potential, with the maximum being 200 at a later date.
Right, you're allowing the maximum if they choose
If they
to
choose
not.
to do less, it won't prejudice them coming back later
Right.
to build out the
Okay.
full amount.
Okay. You making that motion?
Yes.
You want to second whatever that motion was?
I'll second it, whatever that was.
All those signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yes?
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Good luck.
You have a 7:45, we're running just a little bit late.
Mark, I'm going to recuse myself for this one.
This is, Great Road, this is not,
Yeah, but it's getting into product manufacturing versus cultivation, which
okay, well,
is...
you're gonna stick around, because we still need
Yes.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Want to just sit in the,
I'm just going to sit
Sit back
there,
there.
yeah. Just
Yes,
think it
go
would be
ahead.
safer.
okay.
I can sit.
Good evening.
I would recommend
Yeah,
wait until.
wait till Anna. She's gonna have a million questions anyway, might as well wait till she can.
Why not?
I think the walls are thick. I feel like this meeting's dragged on so long, I've gotten a year older. I actually have.
You've been waiting all year to sit.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So I think it's been a little while since we had 4 different public hearings. one
Yeah.
day.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of the summer, no less.
I mean, that's unfortunate that the Longs came before us at this particular meeting when we were sort of overwhelmed.
It's busy and it's gonna stay busy for.
Don't say that. You ready?
That smile tells me you heard everything.
Nope.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. My name is Phil Silverman. I'm from the law firm of Vicente Cedarburg. I'm here for Community Care Collective. And we are seeking, it's 2 special permits. It's a marijuana establishment special permit and an Aquifer Water Resource District special permit, as well as site plan approval for a product manufacturing facility at 537 Great Road. You probably recall that we have been before you previously when we were seeking to do both marijuana cultivation and product manufacturing. There was a great deal of consternation about that concept, and so we decided to withdraw the cultivation piece of that. I'm sure what you'll recall is that there were a lot of neighbors that were very concerned about odor emanating from the premises. It just made sense for the owner to say, we don't need to be controversial here. We can do very well just doing product manufacturing. Product manufacturing does not have any of the odor issues. Basically, what the company does is it will purchase on a wholesale basis oils and distillates which have no odor. And you purchase those and then you infuse them into edibles and vape pens and topical ointments, things of that nature. And that's really it. It's just, it's sort of packaging and creating products from the oils and distillates. So a lot simpler, hopefully a lot less controversial. I don't think there were really a lot of other questions regarding the project. As you're aware, the site is already in use as a retail facility. This is a lower impact type of use. You don't have so many people coming and going. You'll have employees, obviously, in the morning and then leaving in the evening. And you might have, at most, I think, when you get to the height of this, maybe a van a day that's doing deliveries, but it wouldn't be much more than that, I don't think. That's sort of the new plan, and we've seen the decision that's been put out. We're comfortable with it and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
The plan looked like the same plan before with different labels of the use of the, yeah.
Just took what used to be cultivation space and made it manufacturing space.
Okay.
It's really not manufacturing, it's just taking big stuff and breaking it down into little stuff.
That's a good way to look at it.
Now, you're not building Etzels out there, no.
No.
I don't have any questions. No, you good?
So here's a question. So the original application read as cultivation, right? It did not read as manufacturing.
No, red is both.
It read as both?
Yes.
Okay. So I think one of the questions that came up when taking a look at it again is, for example, in the original application, under quantities, so I think the quantities just related to the cultivation. I don't think they related to the manufacturing.
Previously, what you would have done is you would have grown your own product, and then you would have taken the plants and break them down. And so it's probably would have been a much larger amount of product before than what you'll have now. I think you'll forego any of the flower, the plant, and you'll just buy from others the oils and the distillates. So it's actually a little bit of a simpler and quite a bit less product.
Okay, and then also in terms of the processes, I think were not as described in the original application. So where I'm going with this is that I know that for expediency, it's been requested that we just toss out the cultivation pieces, but there may still be more detail that's really needed to further explain the manufacturing component, given the fact that now that's going to be the only piece of the business. So I'm thinking about this from let's say 5 years from now, somebody says, hey, there was that decision that was made, let's take a look at the application, et cetera. It's messy because that cultivation piece is still in there. So given my two questions around quantity, around processes, I would like to request that a new application be resubmitted with the cultivation pieces pulled out of it and really focusing in on just the manufacturing piece of it.
I hear you. What I guess I'm trying to keep things moving forward here, what I'd be happy to provide, further detail. In fact, I have a consultant here, John.
Well, but it's needed for the application, that's my point.
So you're not comfortable with what's already in the application about product manufacturing?
Well, so much of what was explained the last time was that this is really going to be more cultivation and that the manufacturing piece was more like a byproduct of that. So that's part of why, if now this is going to be the new business, it's important to be able to have more detail about it. That's all I'm saying. In fact, it's more of, I see this as making sure that when this is looked at again, that there's no confusion as to what we actually did here. There's language in that application all over the place about cultivation. And I just want to make sure that when we sign off on it, we're signing off on a business that is manufacturing and not that you read it and it kind of mixes it up. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just trying to understand, because you don't want it mixed up. Are you concerned that we're suddenly going to start doing cultivation there? Well, but your permit won't allow it.
So, process-wise, what I did after the planning board voted to allow the withdrawal of the cultivator was filed that vote with town clerk. So that closed out the cultivation portion of the special permit. And also in the decision did add note that the applicant had withdrawn all of the cultivation from the application.
If you'd like to further clarify it by saying absolutely no cultivation will be allowed on the premises, we're happy to do that too. I mean, we're not trying to sort of pull one over on anybody.
Okay, but there are still questions that need to be answered. For example, what quantity is going to be manufactured?
Right.
What are the policies and procedures that will be different for the manufacturing that you did not address previously because there was so much content related to the cultivation piece? So I'm just trying to get more specificity around the manufacturing piece that is now truly the business. I mean, to put it quite simply, it's like saying, okay, I'm going to be marketing, clothes and shoes, but guess what? Now I'm going to take away the clothes piece of it. I'm just going to manufacture shoes. Well, okay, so now tell me more about that. That's all I'm saying.
But why do we need to know more?
Because it's not even addressed in the application.
Well, no, I understand your point about the cultivation, but I mean, quantities? I mean, we're allowing the manufactured, I'm gonna manufacture 200 pounds of this and 50 ounces. We don't need that kind of.
So the answer is, quite frankly, because it's in our process. It's in the bylaw. It's asking for that information.
We don't ask that of any other business in town.
But it's in the bylaw.
If you'd like a statement from our consultant about the quantities, we can give you that.
Yeah.
Come on up, John. This is John Napoli. He's one of the foremost consultants in the industry.
Hi, John Napoli. I actually grew up next door in Acton, very familiar with the area. As far as quantities go, the retail store will determine the quantities that they're going to produce there. They probably, sell between $1 million and $2 million worth of retail of product manufacturers, and they wouldn't produce more than that in a typical year. It's as far as manufacturing goes, you're literally talking about receiving an oil, as he said, and then breaking it down into the different vaporizing carts and then repackaging them for retail. So quantity, no one's gonna be able to tell you the exact quantity. It's determined by the sales coming out of that retail store.
But what is interesting, from Anna's point of view, you're asserting that this manufacturing will be for sale at community care. It's not going to be manufactured for other, well, there's some other, so that may be
goes
a
to
way
the
to
whole
look at it.
process
Is this,
and
do we want a
procedure.
decision limiting it to for sale at that site, or other sites owned by community care enumerated, or?
I don't think we really can. I think it's,
Okay.
it's just like, it's no different than growing it. The only difference is it's already grown, it's in a stable form, and they're gonna take it and make edibles out of it and everything else like that. It's like any business in town that makes something.
Yeah.
We're being a little more protective because it's marijuana.
Yeah, but it's a widget at the end of the
But
day.
at the end of the day, it's a product, and they have every right to sell it locally at their stores. You also have one in Billerica, right?
Correct,
You
yeah.
could sell it there, and if somebody else wanted to buy it, it's gonna be no different than the gentleman that's gonna be coming before us in another half hour. So I don't think we have an issue with, we never had a problem with the commodity, with the fact that it was a commodity and how much it was gonna be. And I don't think we need to worry about it now, as long as we restrict it to the fact that you're taking marijuana components and making other marijuana, making brownies with it, making gummies, making whatever you're making with it, and it's gonna be sold on a retail. I don't think we care how much comes out of there. At least I don't. I don't care what comes out of there. I think the safeguards
Well, the better
that.
we do, the better for the town.
But the safeguards that the CCC put into
Yeah, we have-
effect,
we have strict
they have
state
to live by
guidelines.
all of that
Strict
stuff.
state guidelines, yeah.
Right, so it's no different than whether you manufacture it there, or you take something that you get somewhere else and do.
So-
It's basically the same thing,
Just to,
so as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I understand your concern, in terms of the bylaw, but I remember when we did this last time for the retail. We can try to come up with a number for you. It's gonna be a guess. The market is changing rapidly in the industry, so if you want numbers, I would use the same numbers that we gave you before on the retail.
Well, so here's the thing, I'm not looking for financial numbers. What I was looking for was quantity in terms of, I think the quantity in there for the cultivation piece was in terms of pounds, in terms of expected manufacturing. I know, because everybody does a marketing plan, everybody does a business
It's actually
plan.
a lot easier to determine
So
the
from,
quantity of a cultivation, because we know exactly how many plants will be growing, but this is totally determined by sales.
so here's where I'm going with this, okay? And I didn't expect that there would be this kind of pushback. The bottom line to it is that this was not emphasized during the cultivation portion. Now this is a manufacturing, and all I'm asking for is some additional detail so that we make sure that we have it in your application. And so that's it. That's all I'm asking for is the necessary information, and I'm asking you to go back in and make sure that you have answered the questions from the perspective that this is solely a manufacturing entity. That's it.
Okay.
You're no longer a cultivator, you are now a manufacturer. And so putting that lens on when you go through the application, that's it. That's all I was asking for. I have no other qualms about this. And the only other question that I had is related to where the CCC is on the application for the manufacturing.
I think that is still in process. I don't think we quite have our provisional yet.
Okay. And so that was something that we had also agreed to the last time, was that because the applicant is already an existing organization, that was going to essentially be okay to continue because this was, I forget the term, an extension of the existing business.
Pre-existing, yeah.
Right, exactly. So you have time. That's all I'm saying. You don't even have your provisional yet. You have time to just resubmit it, and I can tell you that I'm sure everything is going to be fine based off of our conversation. So that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
I mean, you're waiting on your provisional. It's not like you can do anything.
Do they need permission before they get some extra provisional?
Well, so, I don't want to get into, I hear what you're asking for.
Good.
How about this, how about, obviously you buy the stuff in bulk. Do you process 100 pounds of raw material in the course of a week? Tell us that. If it's 1,000, tell us.
So that's be measured in grams, so you'd probably process maybe 1,000 kilograms, or I mean, yeah.
So can you tell us that?
But I'm uncomfortable with that, because then we enforce how many, if they go over.
I'm trying to accommodate Anna on this one.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
If you were going to a completely different town and you were submitting an application for this exact same business, what would you put down under quantity?
But nobody else asked the question, but I can try and come up with something for you.
Okay.
If I had to guess, it would be about 1,000 grams a week of distillate.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. We can amend and put in the information you want. You're looking for the quantities, you're looking for policies and procedures. Is there anything else in particular?
So here's what it says in our bylaw.
Yep.
The quantity of marijuana and marijuana products that will be cultivated, processed, manufactured, packaged, transported, tested, or studied at the marijuana establishment as applicable.
Yep.
Manufactured. That's it.
Okay. Yep.
So,
Here, let's just make this easy. Everything that has a circle next to it wasn't in the application,
Okay. Yep.
so.
So, and we're not real bright, so can you not do grams and do pounds?
Well, so when you're measuring flour, yeah, you're gonna measure that in pounds, because it's a bigger quantity. But when you get down to the oil, you usually measure it in grams.
About ounces?
Or liters. It's more of a gram. I mean, it's 28 grams per ounce. You could easily make the conversion.
No, you can.
That's generally, when we sell it, that's how it's on grams, kilograms.
You
Just
can.
put a note with the
You can.
conversions.
Yeah, we could do the conversion.
All right, thank you.
So 1,000 grams is less than a 55-gallon drum.
Oh, much less.
Yes.
Yes. That's much.
Much.
That's like what we do in a year, right?
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Okay, that would be fine, thank you. You good?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to put them on for, can you wait, when are we doing September? We haven't even discussed that.
Actually, you did September 8th, I think, is what you decided, is that, or am I making things up?
I think you're making things up, but that's
So
okay.
the first Thursday in September is the 1st.
Yeah, I won't be here the next.
September 8th, you won't be here?
No, I'll be here the 8th, but the Thursday after that I will not.
So let's do it the 8th then.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so continue to, I recommend you continue the public hearing until Thursday,
September 8th.
September 8th.
It's just 3 weeks, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
And it can be
Do this
first
right,
in
it's-
line.
Sure, we'll
Yeah,
get
no
you in and
problem.
get you. You want
Happy
to
to
start
provide it.
getting your little Susie Bake Oven going and start next week, that's good.
So do this right at 6:45?
6:45.
All right, great. Awesome. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, you're on 5 minutes.
Oh, we're running, no, we're terrible now, we're way behind now.
No.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
only 5 minutes off.
All right, 8:15. Public hearing, water resource special permit, 205, 215 Taylor Street. Anybody here for that?
Yeah, it's a new public hearing, so we'll read the notice. Public hearing, Aquifer and Water Resource District Special Permit, 205 to 215 Taylor Street. The Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, August 15, 2022, at 8:15 PM in Room 103 of Town Hall, 37 Shattuck Street, to consider an application for a special permit pursuant to MGL Chapter 40A and the Code of Town of Littleton zoning. The application is for an Aquifer and Water Resource District special permit under Sections 17361 through 17363 of the Code of the Town of Littleton. Property location is 205 and 215 Taylor Street. Applicant Crandall and Company. Owner David Lalive and Kenny Realty Trust. The applicant proposes storage of ice control chemicals consisting up to 300 tons of road salt and 25,000 gallons of liquid salt at this site within the Water Resource District. Application and plans can be viewed on the town planning board page of the town website. And any person interested should come to the hearing or send me any questions at my email address, and it was signed by Clerk Bartlett Harvey.
Thank you.
Good evening, Cheryl Gold, attorney for the applicant. We've submitted the special permit request, and I submitted a certification of notice. And I'm going to turn over the floor to, who I have with me here, Kyle Burchard is from Goldsmith, Preston, Ringwall, the engineers for the project, and Jonathan Crandall is the owner of the company. What they're seeking to do is to open a sort of a grounds maintenance, but mostly snow treatment removal company at 205-215 Taylor Street. Just for reference, that's the site that now has a personal storage facility and the home of the Lilies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Kyle Burchard with Goldsmith, Preston, Ringwall. Assume everyone's had an opportunity to read the application. There's just a couple of slight adjustments that I'd like to bring to the board's attention at the moment. There's wording that says that there's no proposal to increase or modify the impervious areas. We have begun a site survey to make sure that we have all considerations in. I think that there will be some modification to the existing site impervious without increasing any impervious. Also, there is an existing concrete pad on the property approximately in your packets to the northeast of the existing building. That may not be suitable for the installation of the hoop house where the salt storage will be, so it's likely that that will be removed in favor of a proper leachate containment area for the salt. Also, here is Jonathan Crandall, excuse me, and he is the operator of the facility, and just maybe introduce him to be able to talk about his intent with the facility.
Good evening. More or less just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the sole owner of the company, and we're started about 26 years ago out of Peabody, Mass. We're in Danvers now. I've been there about 13 years, and we just opened up another facility out in Southborough. I'm a slow learner, so it took me a while to figure out how to expand the company, but now as we're, the facilities are operating, running well, we're trying to put a few facilities in Massachusetts. Mainly we just take care of large commercial properties. We started out just, in small houses, and now we take care of hospitals and logistics centers like UPS, FedEx, Amazon, and whatnot. And mainly just so that those facilities can pass safely. So they're largely, it's important that they have a safe crossing and whatnot in the winter months. So a large part of our work is having these de-icers, and mainly the rock salt, the pure salt, and then also liquid de-icer. I've been involved quite a bit with the industry, so I probably know more than anyone should ever know about salt, and I know a good deal about how to make sure it's not, or reducing as much as we can of it getting into the environment. So that's mainly what I had. I just wanted to see if you had any questions about what we're looking to do. Going into a town, even when I started out, pretty young, I've always told the towns that we want to come in and be a good steward of the environment in the town, and we don't want to go, we want to go into a community that wants us to come. So before we even made the offer on the property, we came and talked with several people in the community here in the town, and I just want to make sure we're doing that tonight too. So
thank you.
That's all I have.
Board have any questions?
I have a question about the hoop house. Is that, we have a state transportation, looks like what you would call a hoop house, a structure, some kind of, is it, are you aware of what I'm talking about? It's at the, where the railroad tracks are, yeah. Is it similar to what you're gonna do there, or?
You could probably speak a little bit better to that.
Sure, it's a smaller facility, and there's some pictures at the back of the application if you've had a chance. So there will be waste blocks around a containment area that has then a metal and fabric hoop over it. Certainly not as big as
Okay.
the nearby
So,
facility.
and so dimensions are, because when I think of hoop house, I think of something over a row of tomatoes, so.
Yes, you're right, I agree with you. So this might be on the order of 30 feet wide at the opening end of it.
Okay.
And as long as 50 to 60 feet
Okay,
long.
so that is smaller than what's, yeah.
Much, yes, quite.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not dealing with the whole highway system, they're dealing with their customers, yeah. And it's like what I've seen a million times, so most places just put tarps over it and throw tires on top of them. All you're trying to do is keep the salt dry.
It'll look cleaner than that.
Yeah, I know, I know.
So then, I did look through the application. In the existing building, there's some tanks for storing the liquid de-icer, or liquid, what is it called?
It's literally sodium chloride with salt.
Okay.
So, not to bore everyone in the audience and yourselves too much, but brine is becoming a bigger and bigger thing across the country. And what you're able to do is effectively, like if you look at this carpet in the room here, we can use generally less than 50% of the amount of sodium chloride to de-ice this surface area if we use it in the brine form versus a straight rock salt form. And the reason for that is when you apply straight rock salt, if you notice going down a roadway, you'll see the truck will apply the rock salt and then it'll scatter towards the curbs. When you apply the brine, it sets right into all the crevices, so you're getting a better penetration, and you can use a lot less chemical. So that's why we're looking to use some of this liquid.
Okay, this is what my mechanic's telling me is rusting out components of my car, but anyway.
It'll rust out less as a brine.
But I appreciate being able to drive safely in the winter, so.
Sure.
So then what is the rest of the building gonna be used for?
For some of our equipment,
Okay.
the salt trucks and the different, machinery that we use, so.
Anna?
So you'll be using two existing buildings and building a new one? Or just,
The one existing building that's on site, the main building that's there, is the only building that's there. There's a pad from some former development that's there that really won't suffice to make an adequate containment for salt storage areas, so that will come up and a proper containment area will be put down.
okay.
In the house?
For the hoop house, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
the existing building will be there. All we're talking about is then the addition of a hoop house.
Right. And then the existing house, is that part of the property, or?
Oh, sorry, I forgot about the existing house.
It's gonna be office space or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, likely, right, for the time being, it'll just be 2 apartments that are there.
Okay.
The owners right now are, asking to stay there for a little bit during the transition. And once they move out, we'll either rent the apartment or we'll use it as an office.
So the hoop house is basically a glorified tent.
More or less, there's a little more to it.
Yeah. So it
We
doesn't
want to
fall
make
down.
sure that the surface of that hoop house is unpenetrable.
Yep.
So we can, we're not getting salt down into the ground.
So the plans that we were provided, are these the current plans or really old plans?
Is it this plan?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we had available, and it's not current as far as it's not what's proposed.
Okay.
But it's, from a use standpoint, it's not going to change substantially. There will be the hoop house probably next to the existing building.
Right, so that's why I was asking, because it says proposed two-story garage. So we will be seeing new site plan, is what you're saying?
There will be a plan that we can develop, yep.
Yep, okay.
So you just used the existing drawings you had, which were used to build the building originally, and?
That's right.
Okay, so that is confusing, but.
Yeah, okay. So I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of the materials that are used. But I guess I would like to ask that when you come back, you provide mitigation strategies as to what's going to happen, because even in your own application, like on page 38, it talks about how this is hazardous to the aquatic environment, and so we definitely want to make sure that we are very cautious about what we put on, put out there, and that we have figured out, well, if it has to be done, how is it going to be mitigated in your location? Because everything that I've read says that, yes, there is definitely water contamination from road salt. So if you're going to be using that, I would just like to know how you plan to mitigate the risks.
And this is why you're rebuilding the concrete pad?
That's one primary reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the hoop house on top of it, because it's fine as long as it's dry.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in particular, as I said, in the application, it does have items on page 38 and items on page 29 that talk to, the EPA hazards. And I just want to make sure that we know what we're getting when we look at this kind of an application.
I can also just, the material that we're keeping there and the material we're spreading is no different than what you're using in the town now for the roadways. It's the same material. And what's probably, when you hear 300 tons, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but it's about 10 tractor trailer loads. I can't speak for the DPW of Littleton, but on average, like the city of Peabody and Danvers use more than that one application to treat the town. So it's not as, it sounds like a massive amount, it is, but that's what it takes to de-ice, so. So it's, and not to sound minimal about this, but around Massachusetts, as they're applying across the roadways everywhere as they de-ice. And what we're trying to do is when we store it, obviously, you keep it under the hoop house, you keep it on a surface that's that's not concrete or hot top, and just minimize any of that runoff. So we'll definitely share, whatever we're going to do.
Well, and there was a question as well as to whether or not the storm drainage plan needs to be provided. So yes, given what's going to be there, most certainly.
Are we do peer review?
It's not clear yet if we'll need peer review or not, depending on the extent of the drainage system. The water department is interested in this application. They're waiting, they were waiting for two things. One was for town council to weigh in on the use, and I'll get to that in just a second. And the second was for detailed plans to be available, and GPRs, I understand GPR is working on those. And not to put words in your mouth, but I'm presuming that'll include drainage plans or drainage design.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. And town council, my question to town council was, given the seemingly large quantities of materials that they're proposing here, can it be allowed under the water resource district? Since it's not a toxic or hazardous material, it falls under the salt control or ice control chemicals portion of our bylaw, so that the planning board has the authority to approve it with conditions, and town council recommends that we look at the what the state guidelines are for storing these, because these use and storage of these materials, because that's what our bylaw references, is the state guidelines.
And who would be looking at the state guidelines? I mean, is this why we should have maybe limited peer review, or?
I'm going to draw on the water department's expertise to start with, and if we need to dig
Call the
deeper.
highway department.
There you go.
Highway department does it now. It's fine. Just whatever they have to do, they'll have to do.
It's my understanding that the water department just hired the engineer Matt Silverman as their consultant for these things.
Okay.
And he's working closely with us on this, and that'll be reported back to the board.
But it's no different than what the highway department has to do.
I think they're in the same building.
Yeah.
Right behind them.
Yeah.
Maren, I have a question. So in looking at my map of the Aquifer Water Resource District, it's really hard to tell whether this property location is in the aquifer or not. Do you have anything else that shows it at a much grander level? Because it looks like it's in the aquifer district, so that's why I was asking.
We had this conversation, I don't remember the result. I will double check whether it's aquifer or water resource.
It's absolutely not in the aquifer, it is in the water resources. 495 creates that divide between those two areas for the town bylaw.
Right, and most of the change for that map was in the Littleton Common area, but I did have that conversation with both IT and Water Department today on, can we make these updates to the GIS? So you can look at parcel by parcel.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, yes, I agree, since that was 2019, I think it's about time.
Yeah.
So can we continue this to the 8th? Will we be ready for the 8th?
The 8th? Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
No, that's Route 2.
It's right here.
No, that's Route 2.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
have-
right.
We'll have the highway department weigh into is the best management
It's on
practices for the
495
salt
in
pits.
Taylor.
They need a permit for it? For the structure? Do they need one? Even though it's a tent?
Tents require permits.
You need the money that bad?
Yes.
Oh. All right, okay. We good? Anyone else? Any last questions? Well, we're trying to stay on point here.
Any public input?
Anybody in the audience have any questions or concerns?
Would Conservation Commission have anything to say about this? About the sewer, the runoff or anything?
There's no water there. It's, there's no standing water or anything else. This is just.
It's the water department.
Okay.
Okay, having heard nothing from anybody in the back, we'll continue this till the 8th, 7 o'clock. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a 8:30, public hearing, adult use marijuana product manufacturing.
I'm going to be recusing myself from this.
You're still gonna come back for 8:45.
No, Lauren says I don't.
Lauren says you don't?
Yeah.
How come? How come she doesn't?
It's up to,
It's up to, do you want us? No, I don't.
I mean, isn't it what we've already discussed?
Yeah, okay. We can do it without you.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, you don't have to. If you want to leave us and
Well, no,
let the
I
four of
mean-
us decide for you, because you can't decide for yourself, that's fine.
we've already discussed this.
I know. All right, you can go.
You're jealous.
Yes, yeah, she gets to go. I can't. Holy moly. No, it's- Sorry, you have too many people. You're only allowed like 5 people. Wait till 8:30 at night to bring in the cavalry? All right.
okay, it's a new application, so new public hearing notice, consolidated public hearings, adult use marijuana establishment, marijuana product manufacturer, and water resource district special permits, 160 Air Road, units 1 and 2. Littleton Planning Board will hold a consolidated public hearing on Monday, August 15, at 8:30 PM in room 103 of Town Hall, 37 Shattuck Street, to consider the application for special permits pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, in the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. The application is for an adult use marijuana establishment, marijuana product manufacturer, and water resource district special permits and site plan review under sections 173-16 through and goes through all the various sections of the bylaw that apply. Property location 160 Air Road, units 1 and 2, applicant MRM Industries LLC, owner Athena Assets LLC. The applicant is seeking an adult use marijuana establishment, marijuana product manufacturer, and water resource district special permits to allow a marijuana product manufacturing facility within the existing building. There will be no direct retail sales from or marijuana cultivation at this facility. Application and plans can be viewed on the town website. People interested can come to the hearing or provide comment, if possible, by August 13th. And it gives my email address and mailing address. Feel free to call the planning board office with any questions. Signed, Bartlett Harvey Clerk.
Thank you.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
Didn't we have a meeting on this already? Is this a new application from the
It's-
one that was?
You had the pre-application
Okay.
discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Reader's Digest, Frederick. Go ahead.
I would like it to be that way, sure. Jim Valeriani with the Mensing Group. Good evening to you all. On behalf of MRM, I would like to introduce a number of representatives with us off the bat. Why don't we go ahead? Blake Mensing is with us. I think you all know Blake from previous hearings. You know Kyle. Nick Verone is the cannabis consultant who's advising the company MRM on their startup, their operations, till they get up and running. He has done quite a bit of work in this industry. And we have also with us Eric, what's your last name again, Eric? Gath, forgive me, I don't work often enough with you. BOW Engineers, and they do quite a bit of business in the cannabis industry as well. So MRM is seeking the permits that Maren just went over at 160 A Road, in the light industrial district, I believe it is, and it's units 1 and 2. Now, there are 6 units to that condominium. Cherry Stone Furniture, as you know, takes up units 5 and 6. G7 Lab in 2020 obtained a special permit for an independent testing laboratory. So as we had discussed then, product comes in, they test it, they let the grower know it's okay to be packaged and distributed. And of course, Littleton Apothecary has a retail special permit, and they are still working through some licensing and procedural matters, I understand. So MRM, and this is important to note, is seeking to buy units 1 through 4 and operate a product manufacturing operation in units 1 and 2. Now, I think that's important to note because we are seeking, and I did specifically request in our application material, a waiver from the 500-foot distancing requirement from other non-co-located marijuana establishments. I know that is specifically in your bylaw. The cannabis regulations simply indicate, any one marijuana establishment be 500 feet from a school K through 12, public or private. But your bylaw went a step further and indicated 500 feet from other marijuana establishments, but that can be waived, it can be reduced, and we did specifically seek that waiver and that reduction. And part of the reason for that, there's not a significant number of locations that can accommodate these types of uses. A large cultivation manufacturing or say a tier 11 of 100,000 square feet. Well, that's great. There's a property right on Ayer Road that is for lease right now for 92,000 square feet, but that's too big for us. That entire list of properties along Ayer Road is essentially aggregate industries, Middlesex companies. On the other side of the road, you've got construction and transportation companies. It's really heavy industry, construction, contracting, mobile homes, and a lot of specialty engineering industrial companies. So this was a location that worked well for us. Other companies have been approved at this location, so MRM did seek it out.
I'll stop you for 1 sec, okay? So we already had this discussion when we had the preliminary, that we didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have a problem with the fact that they're gonna go in there. We put G7 labs in there, we gave them the waiver, we're prepared to give you the waiver as well, so.
Okay.
So.
Fantastic.
See?
So I'll stop on that. And
I'm making it go faster, right? Am I missing anything?
I think you're right.
We all had talked about that, and we didn't see an issue with issuing a waiver. Just to be on the safe side, I think we asked you to come in and ask for the waiver. All right, so we're good.
Fantastic.
And well, Anna could, talk to this, but I think that bylaw was mainly for retail.
Retail.
For retail.
I think that has been done in past meetings, but the
And
way it
that's
is
the,
essentially
that's the
written.
reason we gave G7 Labs, because it's not a retail establishment. And that's what we didn't want. So I think we all decided we're good.
Good.
You're asking for the waiver, that's good.
Okay, great.
We
And
just
so-
need to identify of the 4 reasons, which one we're gonna go with as to why the waiver is being granted.
Okay.
Okay, and I could speak to that as well, if necessary. But we were here last month with a preliminary presentation, and I had erroneously stated that the company had not yet obtained its provisional licenses. That was my memory lapse. The reason for that is the company had just obtained its host community agreement that same week from the Board of Selectmen. Now, the vast majority of licenses to date are new licenses that are issued. I'm used to handling brand-new licenses and going before the local permitting boards. Blake handles the Cannabis Commission licensing. Now that the industry has matured, there is more, you're seeing more and more transfers of licenses, provisional licenses, companies that had obtained licenses that are unable to make a go of it, or for whatever reason, transfer them, and the Cannabis Commission allows that. So the company does have in its possession transferred provisional licenses. So it meets the requirement to have a provisional license that your bylaw states in order to come for the special permit. So the parking requirements are not going to change. There's, I believe, for Touchstone Productions, which is the operation there now, they have 4 to 6 employees. MRM will start with 4, and maybe in a couple of years have up to 6. No more than that. They're going to build out the facility in 2 phases. Nick can talk to that. The parking, you might have a delivery van on site. That's it. There'll be no interactions with the other businesses there with this company. It's a wholesale business-to-business company. They'll have marijuana product, raw product brought in. They'll do extractions, oil extractions, and then in a phase 2, they'll commence with the manufacture of edibles. But that is a couple of years down the road.
I'm going to beat Anna to the punch. Do you have any idea how much product you're going to be working with on a yearly basis or a weekly basis?
We didn't include that in our filing, but Nick, would you like to speak to that?
Finished product or biomass?
How much you're going to
How much biomass is coming in, and what's the finished product total going to be?
So we're looking at like a couple thousand pounds a month. It's not a huge operation. Just have one extractor doing CO2 extractions.
So pounds of
raw biomass that we're going to
Okay.
purchase from
Yeah.
other
Okay.
producers in the state.
So, okay, Anna.
Well, I appreciate that you all brought this up because in your application, you actually indicated on page 19 that you include, it says applicant has included amounts, weights, types that will be produced in its description of proposed manufacturing included with this filing. But I didn't see it, so.
It was, forgive me, it was, I did not include a table of contents, so forgive me for that. But it was in the rear of the submission. Nick had prepared a 2-page description of the entire production process. I mean, forgive me for not adding a table of contents, but it was a very lengthy 2-page, single-spaced, detailed description of the products coming in, the method of manufacturing, extraction, the machinery that'll be used, the storage of chemicals, the storage of material.
Is there like
So-
a page number?
No, forgive me, Board Member Houston, I did not.
Okay.
So that was
All right.
in there, and I'm happy to let you hold on to this if
Okay.
you'd like for the moment.
Okay, all
Okay.
right. I'll look forward to my online version.
I see.
Thank you.
Okay.
So relative to our previous discussion, would you be, so you're extracting and creating the distillate and everything that's going to become
Correct.
that, would you be like selling to like Collective Care or?
So we won't be selling retail, of course, but we'll be selling B2B to other producers.
Right,
So
that's
for
my
example, our
question.
clients would be someone that wants to make vape pens, or maybe they want to make
Okay.
edibles, or any type of
So they
infused
may,
product.
Collective Care may actually be buying your product for
Could be,
their
yeah.
manufacturing.
Oh, so you're not going to have a finished product, you're going to,
We're selling a raw good, yeah, for
Okay.
phase 1.
Okay.
You know, a couple of years down the line, we want to start making edibles, we want to start making other products, yeah, but as of right now, for phase 1, we're just be selling B2B for other manufacturers to infuse their product with our oil.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Last week, I know there's been efforts to contact police and fire chiefs. Of course, they're very busy individuals, but I understand a meeting took place last week from a gentleman, Masood, who was with MRM Industries, and he met with fire and police, I believe. Yes. Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Thank you. My first time meeting him, in addition to your first time. And the fire chief provided a memo indicating, those are all, in his opinion, fire code related regulations that honestly, if I may, and I do believe this is the case, go more to the building and fire code than they do to the land use codes of the municipalities. So we still have to work with police and fire. We provided a security plan to the police. I think they found it to be typical of these types of operations. Now, Kyle can get into a little bit of what we're doing on the outside. We're not making any exterior changes to the building. We are adding a natural gas generator, I believe. Thank you, Myron has the site plan up. And a dumpster at, is it the first loading dock, Kyle?
That's right.
That's right. And that dumpster will be for office waste. We could add another one for recycling. We'll store the recycling inside. But so long as that dumpster is locked continually, there'll be very little product that's remaining that's usable at all. That'll be destroyed per the Cannabis Commission requirements. And it can go in that dumpster so long as it remains locked. There'll be a locked fence around that dumpster at all times. We do have a need to store some, I think, empty gas canisters. That would be on the northwest side of the building. There are a couple of doors on that side. I did not bring the photos in, but so if you're coming around from Mayor Road and you're about to turn left behind the building, there are a couple of doors that lead out. There's a small set of stairs. So a number of tanks would be stored there. What is the size? About 100?
50-pound tanks.
50-pound tanks.
CO2.
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 Okay. And they'll be inside we would prefer to use a chain link that's locked so it's invisible at all times, but if the board would prefer something aesthetically, more preferable, that can be done. So we see that dumpster, the storage of the CO2 and the generator is consistent with any light industrial, commercial facility. I mean, the generator, they'd like to keep working certainly at all hours in the event of a prolonged power outage, but we need the backup power for the security systems as well. So why not bring in the small generator, similar to what G7 had put in on natural gas. So I think, I don't think we have anything back from the water department, is that correct, Myron?
Correct.
Yeah, we just got them our final information on, I think Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. So we expect whatever review they have for us, we'll certainly work with them. We are in the water resource, I believe it's called, the water resource overlay, not the aquifer protection overlay. So we are seeking that special permit as well. You've had two site plans in front of you over the past 2 years for this site with G7 and Littleton Apothecary, and no changes to the parking calculations, no changes to the landscaping. Operations, they'd like, a business like this, especially if they're busy, they would like to be able to operate from, say, 6 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, with just a few people in there. It's set back from the road, it's a highly industrial area, we don't see how that would be offensive to anyone passing by. And we know of no opposition. If there is any, we'd happily address it, but we're not aware of any opposition to this project.
Okay, board, Anna, have any questions?
I do. Thank you. So how did the outreach meeting go last week?
Not one human soul showed up.
Okay.
So it was good from your point of view?
Yeah.
I'm happy to deliver the spiel to an empty room or a packed house. It doesn't bother me. But I did literally go through what the state requires, which is, weird, but I did.
Good.
So it said somewhere in your documentation that you wanted to move here from Uxbridge?
I can speak to that as well. So the Cannabis Control Commission allows licenses to be sold via a change of ownership and control process. That was accomplished, I believe, back in May. And we have just today submitted the change of location to the Cannabis Control Commission. The Executive Director, Sean Collins, has been delegated the authority to review and approve that type of application. And what underpins it is the host community agreement certification form and evidence that we held a properly noticed community outreach meeting. So with those two pieces of paper that, were attached as exhibits, and the commission will generally take about 4 to 6 weeks to approve a change of location. So what that means is that the provisional license is obviously not actionable yet. There's still a series of state inspections called a post-provisional license inspection. That's on the back of an architectural review and energy compliance plan review and approval process. Then you get to a final license, that's by full vote of the Cannabis Control Commission, and then there's a final license inspection. And then what happens is the commission says, okay, you're good, and then the applicant has to then affirmatively request in writing a specific opening day, which may be no sooner than 72 hours after the request.
So you acquired the license, the Coyote license. Was Coyote ever actually operating under that license?
No, and I own Coyote.
Okay, so I'm just confused. Why would you own something, then transfer it over, and then come to a completely different community?
For money,
Okay, but why Littleton?
because the property was available.
It
And the
was
new
listed-
owners, yeah.
It was listed on the multiple listing service, and I might add, there were only 3 other commercial properties on the MLS for Littleton at that time, both on either Great Road or Ayer Road.
So
I
it sounds
believe.
like you were focused or targeting Littleton.
It was on the market.
Yeah, and Masood Sheikh lives not far away in Bolton. So matter of not spending all day in the car.
Okay.
Yes, it was
Um,
actively being marketed by the owner.
So at this moment, you don't have a provisional license and you don't know when?
We
you're
do
going
have a
to-
provisional license. It's going to be moved to this location pending the approval by the executive director. So it's in the name of MRM Industries. As I said, that was approved back in May. That involved a lengthy application and interview with the commission where they said who's selling, who's buying. The commission said the people buying, passed all the background checks, the fingerprinting, the whole 9.
Because basically it's you.
I sold it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, but it's you. You were Coyote.
I am Coyote.
Yes, yes.
Still.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. So I am still confused about the paperwork that you seem to have, but it doesn't seem to be on the electronic version. May I just see it one more time? Because I'd like to see the end of it to see where,
course.
where it's maybe,
And I did submit a PDF
Right,
to the planning office
exactly.
with what I believe
and
was-
which page was it in here?
Bear with me, if I may.
Are you looking for the manufacturing stuff that,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Why don't we just make sure that a supplement is submitted to us that shows that, okay? Just so we don't.
Send a copy of it.
Happily.
Do that too. Anything else, or?
Well, there does seem to be some missing information, and that's part of why I wanted to just see where this is. Oh, wow, it's really like in here. That's right before the pictures. Okay. I don't know if there's any other questions from the other board members?
I don't think we have anything, I don't have anything
Well,
now.
we have the engineer here. Wait, you're at HVAC?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to, this has come up in all of these applications. And I think it's been asserted that there isn't the kind of odor that's generated from this
Like
that there would be
growth.
with cultivation.
I would agree.
Okay. Is there, what mitigation are they going to be installing?
So, we would propose to install activated carbon filtration systems. And what we typically do is basically install redundant systems. You put 2 filters in series. It can get you cut sheets on the cam carb type system. And what we do is install 2 in series. They're 99% effective, and that if you're changing one out, you can keep one active, and it's essentially redundant. So the first stage filters 99%, and if anything is left over, the second stage will capture it, and that allows maintenance of the filtration as well.
Does the oil smell anyway? Does it have a smell?
Does marijuana have a smell?
Right, no, does the
oil-
distillate?
No, it doesn't.
Well-
Honestly, if it smells, we didn't do our job properly because we want to capture those terpenes so that we can sell to other producers to flavor their products with. their
So when you
vapes.
get the bio part, it's wrapped up or something, and then it
Yeah.
goes in the, okay.
Vacuum sealed airtight.
Oh,
and that'll
vacuum
come
sealed
from the other
airtight,
producer,
okay.
Exactly.
So it's not like growing where
No.
the actual process of the plants growing.
Right, you have, in the cultivation facility, you have rooms full of exposed plants that produce a lot of odor. You'll be getting packaged bud. You'll probably have to open the packaging to put it in your devices, but it's a lot easier to capture that odor. We keep the building in a slight negative pressure, so nothing's escaping, and everything exhausted out of the building, we run through that filtration system.
Okay.
Great. We're trying, I mean, we've had a lot of issues with other properties in town, so we're trying to learn.
Violet, do you have any questions? Anybody else? Are you good, or do you want to continue us till September, or?
I think we should continue it. There are definitely some items that, and I will write these down and hand them over, that were a mess. So Maren, I have a quick question for you. Did the bylaw numbers change at all from the time that the marijuana bylaw went into effect? Because if it didn't, all of the numbering and the application is off by one, and it just made it confusing.
Yeah, there was one number that was missing, so when it was posted to general code, there was an update in the numbering.
Okay, so that's what it was.
That might be.
I'll double check my submission as well and just confirm that for you, board member.
Because I went into the online version of the bylaw. So, okay. So these were items related to the bylaw that I found to be missing.
Missing completely or lacking in enough information?
Well, that's just it, because you showed me those 2 pages, and I still didn't see quantity in there, so.
Okay.
If you would like to
We're
address
continuing
it.
this till the 8th, and.
That's
What?
fine.
Oh, we can't, we're not ready to close it now.
Yeah.
We can,
Right, it's
What
the.
questions do you have?
It's the
actually
board's
also-
practice to draft a
draft a
complete decision.
draft a decision and then
Before
send
you
it to
close
the
the
lawyers
hearing.
and everything else. We have to, you have a question before I,
I have a few questions.
okay, name for Maren, please?
I'm Jillian Popnikel. I live at 58 Spectacle Pond Road. I'm a resident who lives about a mile from the facility. So while it's a great commercial area, it is also a residential area. And I think that that was omitted in a lot of the conversation tonight. We do have residents that have severe allergies to marijuana, even as an oil-based, not just an aroma, that live less than 2 miles away from this facility. I want that noted on the record for consideration when we think about what does that air filtration system look like, and the fact that we as a town have had challenges with other facilities that have not maintained high air quality control. I do have a question, whether or not this particular business will be subjected to the 3% marijuana excise tax on their products.
It will not.
No, it will not.
That applies to retail establishments only?
Which you potentially seek to be in the future.
No.
No, not at all?
No.
You said down the road.
That will sell those B2B also in wholesale. We will never have a retail storefront to be selling. So if we
So
decide to
clearly
make
Littleton
edibles,
doesn't benefit from the 3% excise tax if this remained a selling facility as it would have been deemed under Littleton Apothecary. Is that correct?
No, Littleton Apothecary
is
has
still
not
coming
gone
in.
away.
They're still coming in.
This is separate.
This is a different
This
issue.
is-
In the same building right next door,
Mm-hmm,
Potentially.
potentially, yeah.
potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. And then are there any other residents in Littleton in any way related to this business or entity?
Board member Delissa Laterzo is the owner of the 4 units we'll be buying, which is the reason she has recused herself as required under the statute. She is not a participating voting member at all. I believe she's left the room as is
Yeah, she's
required.
gone.
She has. So as residents in Littleton, we already have one collective cannabis shop. We also have Littleton Apothecary, which we're hearing is still potentially coming in. And now we have a facility that is focused on testing and creating wholesale product. Is that correct?
Two separate entities.
Yeah, the testing facility has been
I represent them all, so I
established
can answer all the
and
questions.
is operating for a year.
Yeah,
I mean, you wouldn't even know that it's there.
it's a state run, everything has to be tested and they're certified to the state, so there, has nothing to do with the distribution, anything else like that. No order, nothing. They take small samples and make sure that it's pure, that's all. Okay, and then you have everything
So
else.
they're already operating without the filtration system that was described?
They don't need a filter, they're a laboratory.
I'll answer all these. They're separate entities, they're separate units, they're separate licenses from the state. So they're different lanes. So I have the common denominator, I happen to represent all of them because that's my job.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. It seems to me that you're upset that the law is the way it is.
I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should not say
There's
that
a-
I'm upset
it's a
because I'm
laboratory.
asking
Thank you very
questions.
much.
Ma'am, it's a laboratory. All it does is take a minute sample and make sure the quality of what's being,
But the fact that I'm a resident at an open hearing and I'm being treated rudely is unacceptable.
I-
I'm asking questions.
Didn't mean to be rude. I'm just answering them
I
directly.
do think that the applicant is being rude.
yeah, could you ask the questions to me, actually, that would probably make it a lot easier.
I asked my question.
Yeah, and I just answered it to you. It's a laboratory. There's no large quantities, it comes in minute quantities that go under a microscope.
Sure. I do think the clarification that there's multiple businesses that are doing different things in the same zone was unclear up until you just answered my question.
There's only one right now. The apothecary is not open, and they are proposing to go in there. Right now, there's only the laboratory.
So maybe it will help if you take a look up there at the building.
So this is where the apothecary would be.
Yeah.
This is where the lab
Is.
Is.
And this is where the applicant is proposing.
Okay.
So in some ways, from your concern, it's desirable, if we're having these in town, to have them in one spot so they're not distributed every 500 feet and could impact, I mean, every area in town has a potential impact for residential.
It does.
So there's something to be said for concentrating them in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular case, we had there's a, as you know, on Taylor Street, there's a cultivation facility that's subject to a lot of complaints.
Yes.
So the previous hearing, they were proposing another cultivation facility, and neighbors came out and they took it away. They elected not to do it because they didn't want to be controversial. So at this point, we feel like we're responding to comments like yours in, just hopefully just considering cannabis-related businesses all along the chain of manufacture that will not generate negative effects for our
Odor,
residents.
smell, or
Yeah.
nuisance.
Right.
Right. So we are concerned about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And as part of it also, like George Sanders in the back of the room, who has some experience with this, he's been attending meetings and has been putting his knowledge in. And what you mentioned is what he recommends.
Suggested.
Am I right, George?
The carbon filter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll get a chance to speak here.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we feel like we're being responsive to concerns like yours.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, those are my questions.
Thank you.
George, quick, George is going to talk about the filtration.
George
And
Sanders, 672 Great
I
Road.
hope he is.
Mr. Chairman, to you, from the last hearing that they had here, they talked about the kitchen. I didn't hear the mention of the kitchen here tonight, but I had suggested they use the carbon charcoal filters for the negative pressure. I did hear tonight that they said there's going to be a slight negative pressure. If they're going to be cooking in there, they need to control the smell from the cooking. If there are doughs there, it will go out. As soon as you open the door, it will go out into the hall or what have you there. But with a negative pressure system, it sucks from the bottom upward. So nothing get a chance to go out the door because it's sucking to the filter there. So I would suggest that when you approve this for them, which from what I'm hearing is going to get approved, but I think that as far as the smell and the protection for the community as a whole, we need to ensure that it's on a negative pressure system. And for whoever else is in that building, that what is in the kitchen doesn't penetrate throughout the building there to other areas. So that way when the door is open, when people come in and out, it doesn't protrude outside. Now,
Okay.
normally what happens is that working from R&D point of view, when you're doing testing and trying to neutralize whatever the odor is or whatever the case is, you have to run tests. Maybe 2 filters doesn't do it. Maybe you have to put 3 in. But that's the test that they will have to run when they open this up and start operation. There should be a time that you give them to run that test so that they're able to say there's no smell coming from this system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just to be sure, are you processing it or are you extracting? Is there a difference?
Yeah, so Nick is the expert on how to actually process it, but the way it goes is they're hermetically sealed baggies, vacuum sealed bags of raw biomass, so the flour or trim, that gets run into the CO2 extraction machine. So you open the package, whatever the throughput capacity is, you put it in that. The CO2 takes out the cannabinoids basically. So the plant matter that's left behind is pretty much stripped of any psychoactive components. The Cannabis Control Commission regulations require that biomass be rendered unusable. What's typically done is grinding it with coffee grounds, coffee litter, or dirt, something where someone couldn't say, look, that's a prize, I can get in there. As Jim mentioned, the dumpster must be locked as a function of the state licensure. I believe that's very clearly outlined in our security plan with that Chief Bernard reviewed. So yeah, there will be 2 phases. The initial phase is to just sell wholesale distillate, CO2 extracted cannabis oil. That's a feedstock for other manufacturers throughout the state. So they could make a vaporizer cartridge, they could make a gummy, they could make an infused pre-roll, whatever they would do. So this is, again, business to business only. The customers will do with it whatever they like in a way that's complying with their separate license within the state of Massachusetts only.
Is there a smell as you extract it? Does it go into a machine and is there a smell?
No, we capture that.
You capture it, so it's a self-contained
Closed
system. There is no, you're not putting it on a stove and heating it. There's no kitchen.
No. And the second phase, we would propose to do potential manufacturing of edibles. That would be taking the distillate that's made in-house and baking up whatever the recipe might be. So a cookie, a gummy, a brownie, whatever is people might buy. That process, the distillate itself, you have to basically put your nose right in the jar to really get much of any smell. And that's going to be in a sealed container until it needs to be specifically dosed. The Cannabis Control Commission has stringent limits that you have to prove. It's homogenously distributed in whatever edible you have. It's 5.5 milligrams per serving, no more than 20 milligrams per package. So if you see a chocolate bar with little nibs, each one of them could have up to 5.5. That's where a business like G7 Labs says, yes, scientifically we can say that's what's supposed to be there, and unless and until they get that passing test, they may not sell it even to another business, much less to a consumer down the chain.
So there's actually no processing of it, it's extraction in a sealed system.
Correct.
With
CO2.
With vapor, with carbon filters to...
Correct.
When you change the air inside.
Correct.
Okay.
And one of the topics that I did cover, again, no one showed up to the community outreach meeting, is you have to demonstrate a plan to not become a nuisance. So what I always say is that any state license, any local permit, any host community agreement, none of that is a shield if the neighbor says you're stinking up the joint. You can lose the HCA, you can lose the state license. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's way too much time, money, and effort to get to opening day to let that sort of thing, kneecap you.
Mr. DeCoste.
John DeCoste, member of the select board. Just from looking at the plans and stuff, Mr. Mensing or one of the professionals can answer this question. From the site plans that I've seen, within the location, there's going to be not only just this extraction going on inside of an office suite, essentially is what we're looking at here, right? But there's going to be a build-out inside of that office suite, which will contain everything even further. So it's not like someone's renting space on the common and, just a commercial space. There's going to be, I don't want to call it hermetically sealed, but it's going to be like a vault inside, a building inside of the building. For any of us that have done the tour of Sanctuary, you kind of know that there's an encapsulated building within the building, and then when they do the actual extraction, there's a scientific device that does whether it's CO2 or butane, that extracts the money from the plant. And that's all done pretty much hermetically sealed. It's all done
Inside a machine.
A bioreactor.
Okay.
I don't know if they want to clarify.
Maybe
that
they could
part
get,
of it.
at our next meeting, you get us a cut sheet of what it looks like and everything else like that. We can continue this to the 8th. I think we'll get a draft decision, we'll get some more information from you.
Yes.
And we'll continue it till, 7:30 on the 8th?
That's what I'd recommend.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we'll do whatever it takes to satisfy the board's concerns, but Nick is from Rhode Island. Do you anticipate any further input from Nick on any matters? I mean, he can certainly do something by email if necessary prior to the next hearing.
I think you've given us everything we need. I mean, you've given us a detail of how the process goes and.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe if you could get us some information from other places that manufacture, how the industry standard is or the guidelines for that would help us.
Okay, I do think Nick has worked with quite a few companies, so I think his summary, I will resubmit the summary to make sure everybody has it, as well as the additional.
Real quick, Mr. Saunders.
Mr. Chairman, I want to know, is there going to be a kitchen in this?
He said no.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
And this is what they said the last time.
But this is different than.
Oh, okay. Wait just a minute. Well, I just wanted to make sure if there's going to be a kitchen or not, because before they said it would be one. So we need to know what is going to be there. Is it or isn't it?
I did indicate last month that would be part of phase 2 to what the extent the kitchen is like. Nick, can you speak to that? I mean,
Yeah, for sure. We'll just be making gummies. Just don't really have a smell, but more of the smell is going to be the flavoring, right? We don't want it to taste like weed. Weed doesn't taste good. We want it to taste like cherry. We want it to taste like peach, good stuff. And furthermore, when you're cooking with cannabis oil, you're void of all the plant material, right? All the smell is in the plant material. So once you make it into that oil, the smell is so low, by the time you cook it and mix it with the fruit flavoring, you'll never smell it. We want the flavor, the actual flavoring of the gummies to overpower the cannabis, the slight cannabis
But to
flavor.
clarify, the kitchen that you're talking about making gummies is 2 years or more down the road. It's not in the first phase that you were talking about tonight.
Yeah, maybe not exactly 2 years, but it's
Some-
certainly not in the
sometime in
first
the
one.
future.
Yeah, it's certainly not in the first phase, yeah. And we'll certainly give you more than enough notice when we're going to initiate that second phase.
And I'll just make one point. As a function of the state licensing process, you have to specifically list the products you'll make under the manufacturing license. So that allows the license holder to make any product that anyone can come up with, but you must submit that to the state and have, descriptions of size, shape, flavor, color. So it's not something that can be added at someone's, drop of a hat. It's a regulatory review process involved there as well.
Would you have an issue if we approved what you had going forward, and then if you do decide to manufacture gummies, we get to take another look at it if you are gonna add a kitchen?
Well, would it be done under the normal permit process? I mean, they would have to pull a building permit
To do it, so we have a second look at it.
Yeah, so, what the state does is when you get your architectural review approved, it's a list of everything that you might build out. They don't come and say, did you build everything out? So phase 1, as we discussed, is not going to include the kitchen. So in the state license itself, we'd have to do a structural change request form. So it's 2 layers there, but I don't see any particular issue about, coming back to this board and saying, we're adding this now, do you have any follow-up questions?
Perfect.
Would we be able to have that as an informal meeting and not fully noticed?
I think it'd be a modification to an existing operation?
It's gonna go through the building permit review process anyway, so
Fantastic.
you will be notified.
Oh, fantastic.
Man,
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, you see, by me being persistent about this, I get an answer so that the people know what is going down here, because what they presented the last time and what they come in here tonight, I have attentive ear. I didn't hear them talk about the kitchen. So I understand now the phase that they're in now, they don't need the kitchen, so they say it's minimum amount.
yep,
Long as it doesn't get out the door, they said they're gonna have negative pressure there a little bit, okay, fine. But through you to the building commission, when they do come in for that permit to put that kitchen in, we need to ensure that no smell leaves that building and goes outside.
I agree, thank you. One last, or you good?
I agree, we need the public hearing because I actually consume edibles. I enjoy them very much, and they do smell.
Yeah, they smell like cherry, right?
No, that you can smell the marijuana. You
course you
absolutely
can.
can. So if you're not a consumer of edibles, if no one on the board is a consumer of edibles and you're not aware of what they smell like, I'm a consumer of edibles and you can smell the marijuana.
We're not admitting to anything here.
No
All right, so-
self-incrimination tonight,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
So I do think we need that public hearing
Okay.
for phase 2.
So we'll continue this till,
Could condition that on
Yeah.
well, they'll still have to come before us, I would say.
the, well, just as a condition, say.
Right, I would recommend it as a condition of initial approval, the
Right.
no odors and.
So we have that in the draft decision and we can talk about it.
I see.
Right.
Okay, so we
Is
can
that
get
okay?
a rough draft for next month as well?
Yep.
And anything for Kyle at GPR?
No.
He's a young man, he likes his summer nights like the rest of
No,
us.
I don't think we need them.
Okay, Kyle, we don't need that.
Thank you.
Great slaughter.
We appreciate you bringing everyone in. Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Sorry it's
Thank
taking so long.
Thank you all very much.
So,
Appreciate it.
so that was continued, what, till 7:30 on September 8th?
7:30, September
Back
8th.
here.
And if you could get some cut sheets of the machines, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good night. Good night to all of you.
What?
Good night to all of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
That's
think
my
we're
Medford-
done. Do we have
my
anything
Medford
else?
accent.
We have executive
We're
session.
going into executive session. What? Do you have something? Yeah. Well, we're
Do we
going into
need
executive
to- we have
session.
Do we need to close the hearing?
Don't bring up 234 Taylor Street. He hasn't gotten any complaints, we haven't gotten any complaints.
I'm not bringing it up. I didn't bring it. He did.
We have complaints, people coming to our meetings complaining.
But there's no registered complaints to him or
I don't care if they're registered, Chuck. We have dozens of people who come and complain about it. What are we supposed to do with that? Pardon? Well, I'm sure it's being addressed.
3-4 times a week.
I'm so happy to hear that. So the next time when people come in and complain about it, we'll send them to you.
Okay. All right.
I've never smelled it, I don't know. But, well, the odor thing is a problem because there's no, like, you know, it's
also interpretation.
absolutely.
Just like the water leak was a thing, and it turned out to be
And Chuck,
septic.
we're not going to torpedo them because of the odor issue. We know there's
No, well, it's not an issue with us. Yeah. Well, no, the
That was
neighbors
his
came.
decision. We
That was-
weren't against it.
That was the neighbors came out for that.
And you know, Chuck, I was on the Board of Appeals. They were against the yoga retreat. Those same people came to be against the yoga retreat.
Hey, we have to. Excuse me.
They could have had an asphalt plant.
We got to
there.
go into executive session.
Okay, so,
Oh, I didn't realize we were on.
We're still on TV.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Bye.
So,
reading back
I
from,
want to say thank you to you guys. I'm one of the owners from Greenways.
Good luck.
And I have met with the police chief and the fire chief. We will do everything and anything that is good for the town.
give us the 3%.
Well, let us do some business.
Well, you
Hey.
just talk to the selectmen about that.
Once we get there.
Thank you. Welcome to Littleton.
Thank you so much.
All right, do you want to read it?
Yeah, move that the board enter into executive session for purposes of discussing pending litigation, which is M&M Realty Trust.
getting tips?
The Littleton Planning Board Land Court Case Number 22, MISC 00287. Where doing so in open session would have a detrimental impact on the board's litigating position, and to not reconvene in open session, at the conclusion of the executive session. And the chair declares that, well, never mind, that was the 48 hours. We don't need that. So you would just have to declare that would have a detrimental impact if we had it in an open meeting.
Correct. So I'll make a motion that we go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we can shut that
Well,
up.
and not reconvene.
And not reconvene
And they
afterwards.
recommend a roll call vote.
Oh, okay. Jeff?
Aye.
Anna?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Thank you.
Can we shut the,